Hello, everyone. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Majid. How are you?
I am very good. How about you?
We are we're having some snow here, but it's going quite well.
Same here. I am very excited for today, and let's welcome everyone who is joining us today. We are so excited because we have a great program for today, and let's get it started, Scott, if you agree.
Not a problem at all. Let's see here. We have coming up a couple of Googlers. It's going to be very interesting, especially one's Tim Sneath. He's the group manager for Flutter and Dart. We also have a number of guests here from the community, including PK, MTech Viral himself. We have Arahel from Mexico City, and we have some folks from Flutterfire. In addition to, we always have Jay doing his live coding. We're going to take another look at his Rocket app and take that a little bit further. Now,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Let's also introduce ourselves, Scott. Maybe we are missing Simon Lightfoot. So you want to say where he is?
Simon was not able to make it today. He is somewhere in London.
Yes. But he is in our heart. Simon,
Yes.
I know you're watching us. So, Scott, go ahead. Let's.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am a Flutter community leader. Been working to try to help build the Flutter community for about 3 years. I also organize GDG Cleveland.
And my name is Majid Hajian. I'm also a proud community leader and Google Developer Expert for Flutter. And before we move on, let's go to our code of conduct. So our code of conduct is pretty simple. We have some do's and do not things that you should not do. But if I want to summarize it, it's very simple. Behave very well and respect each other. And that's simple. And I'm pretty sure all of us will do.
It's just
what do we have,
the same courtesy you do to anyone on the street.
Absolutely. So what do we have, Scott, next?
Well, next we have our first Googler. His name is Anjan, and I believe he has a special announcement.
Yes, let's invite him here. Hello, Anjan.
Hey, Scott. Hey, Majid. How you guys? How's everyone doing?
Very well. How about you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
We are impatiently waiting for your announcement. What it is, let us know. I cannot wait.
Okay, awesome. I'll try to make it as exciting as possible, but maybe I can just start with a quick intro and then get into it. So, hey everyone, my name is Anjan Narayan, and I'm a product marketing manager in the Flutter team. Been on the team for 2 years, and I've had the chance to meet many of you through community events, past Flutter events, and online. So super excited to see everyone. We are super excited about Flutter Engage on March 3rd. There will be opportunities for the entire community to engage, innovate, and collaborate with the Flutter community at the special event. And specifically, 30 Days of Flutter is such an amazing initiative in a way to kickstart your Flutter learning journey and get ready for Flutter Engage. So I wanted to give a small heads up that to the folks participating in 30 Days of Flutter that we are going to reveal more information about the event later this week. So would love for everyone to stay tuned and look for an update on Flutter's Twitter channel. So thank you, and we're looking forward to it.
Very excited.
Absolutely. And we also have Nikita. We wouldn't be here without Nikita. She is the brains behind 30 Days of Flutter and has helped organize everybody and keep us all on track. Hello, Nikita. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah.
Maybe you're muted.
There you go. Oh, there you go. It was there for a moment.
It was there for. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay.
No. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. I really hope you're enjoying this 30 days journey. And stay tuned because we have a lot more updates and surprises for all of you in the coming days. And if you have any questions, keep them coming. You never know who might snoop in and answer those. So yeah, look forward to the app submissions happening next week and seeing you all at the Flutter Engage event also happening in the coming weeks.
Sounds
right.
great.
Sounds
We have a
awesome.
bit of a delay, such as the way we do things such as the way of things, I'm sorry, when we're doing things around the world.
Yes.
But it's great to have you two here.
Yes. Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much. Have a good day, both of
Thanks.
You
You
too.
too.
Take care.
you. All right, Scott. So people have done quite a lot recently, since last week, and we captured some of the things that they have done. Let's review some of them. So first of all, we are, like I said last week, and we always saying, we are capturing all what you're doing and wherever you are posting with this hashtag, 30 days of Flutter. Let me also put it on the screen so you know the hashtag. And so some of these things that you are doing is amazing. So we are so surprised and impressed. So people are doing like way ahead of the content and the things that they are receiving. And it's also nice that see some people are also like feeling their calendar, Scott. You see that some of them are just every day they do their practices and exercises, and they just
Some
check
people are
what-
very well organized.
Yes, I'm very
Very-
impressed and very well done, all of you. And then some also has done quite a lot of impressive stuff like animations and things that is quite impressive. So again, we are watching what you are doing. We are checking, and please use this hashtag 30 days of Flutter and let us know what you are doing.
Now, take a look at that one real quick. The heart, that's actually a loading screen, a circular progress indicator.
Yes.
It's been
Yes.
customized.
Exactly. That was a video, so you may go and check it out yourself. Very nice, Scott. What do we have next?
Well, actually, we have, there was one other slide there, but that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We
I think
have-
I missed it then.
Going into week 3.
Yes.
Tomek and Argel are going to go over the materials coming up for week 3.
Let's
And-
welcome them then.
Mhm.
Hello,
Hey,
Tomek.
everybody.
Hello, Arthur.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hello. Pretty good. As you see, I'm trying to compete with you with amount of dashes.
Yeah, I said I just have my little here and it so Majid huge amount
Nice.
of dashes in there.
This is all for community. I'm gonna give it away one day. I promise.
That's good. Always good to
You
hear.
guys go ahead and take it away.
Take it
Thank
away.
you, Scott. Okay, so I'm Tomek and I've been here already, but Argel is new to this 30 days of Flutter. So could you introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure, Thomas. Yeah, okay, my name is Argel Bejarano. I'm from Mexico. I'm a Google developer expert, also a community lead for the Flutter Spanish community. So I have been here for a while, and let's do it because I know people are looking for the next week and already working on the week. So let's do it, man.
Okay, so let's jump in and see what kind of resources are there for this week. And everybody should have gotten the link in an email, and also on the usual web page, you can go back, and now the new tab is added with third week. Okay, so let's see about the self-study material. So in previous week, Jay did really nice presentation of how to create application from scratch. So it was amazing. If you haven't watched it, please do. And there's also code for it. Next, if you are still a bit behind the knowledge of what kind of widgets there are, and Flutter strength is the amount of the share amount of widgets that you can use. Go into widget catalog that we shared also some time ago, and please check it out. But this is what Flutter team provides. What about if you want to use some functionality of the platform or some code that some other people have written? Then you use packages. And here we have a list of one of the best packages that, most useful packages that you can use. First of all is Firebase, which is a Swiss Army knife for mobile development. If you are not using it, probably you might start using, because if you are not backend developer, Firebase can provide you that. It can provide you what kind of, if application is stable, and much more. Please check it out, this package. But later, Archel will be talking a bit more about this. Next is the image picker. When you want to use in your application the images that are somewhere on your phone and maybe send them somewhere. So image picker is perfect for that. URL launcher is a package that allows you to open a web browser with some URL, or open a mail client with special mail to URL. So it's also really powerful, and it works for all the platforms, even desktop. So that's amazing. And last but not least is video player, which basically provides you functionality to play videos in your app. Okay, Archel. So where can we get all those packages?
Yeah, you in all languages, we only have one place where you can manage and get information, and the Flutter is not an exception for this. You can have found any or a lot of packages. Just like type in pub.dev on your browser, you will go in a deep ocean of packages. Some of them could be or look like repeated, but you can go there. You can have different frames, and in there you have a GitHub. You can go to the code. You can learn from the code. That is always important to do. And it's not use the code that you get. Sometimes it's important to just know where it is and go and read and learn also for this code. So you can go to pub.dev, and that's going to be it. You're going to get a new world for widgets and a whole lot more information about this.
Mm-hmm. So Archel, by the way, do you know why pub.dev is called like this?
No, actually I don't. I right now you're saying I actually do not know why.
Okay, so this is almost, I think, from official sources, and this is because, like in pub, you use darts.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
okay.
So this is for now what I heard, the official one, but I like from some people. So okay.
Maybe we can ask people. They can give it a shot and take a look and let us know if it's right. They can tag 3 days of Flutter and let us know if spot.dev is because of that, or if not, I don't even need that. So it's going to be better to know a little bit more about this. So it's important things. Know what is the name of some stuff. So okay, let's move a little bit forward. Firebase integration. I always told this to people when I talk about this Firebase, and so when we're talking about Flutter, because most of the time we also trying to do some development and just said, oh, I had to do something native, and they get kind of scared because of this. This is not something to be scared. It's pretty natural. We as a cross-platform, we're used to moving between Android and iOS. So you need to be aware in Firebase, you need to go there and do some different stuff for each iOS and for each detail of Android. This is not something to be worried about. We have this complete code lab. You can go there. There's a link. You can type it on there. If it's not, it doesn't give you the right thing or something is not working. I know because I have already read it. And the Flutter community Medium, you can go there, and it's a ton of information. You can go there also. So it is many places you can go. We have some videos in there to get started with Flutter and Firebase. So you can use whatever you want, Firebase for Firestore, or you can use ML-Kit. We want to have more information about this later on, but I just give you an idea why Firebase integration is important. So Tom already says this. It's your backend. You can create and do and wherever, even though you don't have the skills of the backend engineer or backend developer. So this is what you need. You can have JSON, you can map it, you can call and wait it and be responsive and do a chat and do a call and wait for every information that you need just using Firebase. So I don't want to go in deep in here. Just give you a little thing and move on, and don't be scared about native. Some people have never do native. Some people do, but only for iOS. Some people do, but only for Android. So in this is time you're going to be aware of everything, iOS or Android. So further information for the reading is so important. Make our apps a little bit beautiful or a little more UI. So this is why we had this animations tutorial. It's always important to get information, to know the proper way, because only done animation can be really bad for a UI. So this is the way you can start. But what else we can do, Tomek, here?
So I would like to add one more thing to the animation in Flutter, because I always hated doing animation. I was doing before Android, as some people can see here, and I really like Android, but doing animation in Android was not my thing. But doing animation in Flutter, it's much more simple, maybe not simpler. It's, if you are into math, like, you will love doing animations in Flutter, because it's only math. If you want to animate color, just give it different values. So using doing animation in Flutter is something that nowadays I really enjoy. Okay, but if you now want to dig deeper into animations, here are really nice videos. They are pretty short and sweet, so you can check how what animation you want to choose, and check out other videos from this list. So, saying that, Argel, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up and go to our guests?
I think let's just give it a shot. Animations, they're always useful. Animations, there's sometimes something done for you or not. You will be able to actually do it by yourself. So give it a shot and let us know what you create.
Okay, thank you, Argel. Okay, Scott, back to you.
Thank you, guys. Very nice and in detail. I really liked it. So thank you very much. Scott, anything else to add? You're muted. The word of years.
Simon's not here. Someone had to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing else off the top of my head. You know, in a minute, I believe we may be having another special guest.
Yes, it seems like Tim is with us, right? Let's welcome him. Hello, Tim.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you all.
Great to see you.
You too.
How's it going?
Oh, you know, it's pretty busy. There's something happening in a couple of weeks that we're sort of getting ready for. So I've been sort of a little busy getting ready for it.
Absolutely. You know, I have one question. First of all, I have a right to ask the first question. I see a dash over there, and I know that you created yourself. I know a lot of right people wants this dash. How can they get that one?
We're working on some merchandising opportunities. It's not quite my space, but we've had a lot of challenges, of course, with the pandemic, to be able to just get and ship some of this stuff. We have boxes of this in offices that we no longer have access to. So our shipment speed has slowed down, but you've probably seen some of the cool new visuals that we have for the Flutter Engage event, and I suspect that will seed a whole new swathe of...
Yeah. But isn't it the virtual one that you created?
The one behind me is actually a prop from Google I/O a couple of years ago that I stole and took home.
Okay.
So I'm curious, though. I saw some, at least drawings or pictures of Dash with all kinds of different clothing and things. Are those real or are those just pictures?
Oh, yes, they're real in a virtual way.
Nice. When can we get them?
Stay tuned.
So, Tim, we have a lot of new people here on the stream, and they may not know exactly who you are and what you do at Google.
Yeah, so, well, hi, everybody. Firstly, thank you. It's awesome to connect with folk from around the world here. Yeah, I'm Tim. I'm Director of Flutter and Dart here at Google. So my responsibility is product management for Flutter and Dart, and hopefully making sure that people have a great experience, are able to find out about Flutter, and that we build the right products for you. So I spend a lot of my time trying to sort of talk to customers, trying to hang out in various different forums, trying to plot the next releases, and then talking about them, hopefully getting others excited about them.
Nice. So it's basically, if this was the Android world, then you would be responsible for managing both Java and the Android SDK as the language and the framework. So that's Dart and Flutter.
My head slightly exploded at the analogy, but yes, I guess the language and the tools that people use to build amazing cross-platform applications.
Yeah. Awesome. So just out of curiosity, something I've never heard, actually. You used to be with Microsoft.
Yeah, I did. Yes.
How did Google poach you? What did they use to lure you away?
Well, yeah, I was at Microsoft for 17 odd years. I had a fantastic time there. They're an amazing company. Nothing but good things to say. But most of my time has been on UI toolkits. I was involved in the early days of WPF, which is the Windows Presentation Foundation, Silverlight, Internet Explorer, when we started really getting into hardware accelerated web technologies, and so on. But I think, this is a journey that is a multiple decade journey to try and come up with a UI framework that really is the Kubla Khan, the kind of the dream sort of destination that sort of covers all of the bases of productivity and speed and a good experience across multiple platforms. Flash solved some of those problems back in the day. Very low bandwidth, but beautiful graphics. But Flash struggled to transition to the mobile world. Silverlight had its own challenges. I'll save those for my memoirs. I got a call out the blue from somebody who ran the team that overall at the time was the parent for some of these technologies, and they said, "Hey, we'd love to chat with you about this thing called Flutter." And I honestly never heard of Flutter at the time. I think some of you have heard of Flutter before I did. And I was like, what? Sorry, Google UI framework. This seemed sort of very sort of odd to me. But and this was sort of early days still. This was, we hadn't released the alpha even, I think, at the point. We were still in a early tech preview. But the more I delved into it, the more I saw a technology that had this sort of magic moment of, this could be the one. This finally solve some of the baseline sort of things that have always been the kind of gaps, in this space, right? The Cordovas of the world, serve a purpose, but they're inherently limited by the web framework from a native UI standpoint. And this felt like something that had both the richness and the power and also the capabilities, but Google just wasn't yet really talking about it. It was just like a little seed, and I saw something and I thought, this might be the one, and I'm willing to give it my damnedest to make sure that it is the one. So that's been the story of the last 3 years, I guess.
Just about, yeah. It's I'm glad you're here. Definitely, it's made the last 3 years a bit more fun.
Well, it's just been like riding a rocket ship, sort of you see the sort of SpaceX sort of rockets that go up into space, and it feels like that, right? It's just been grabbing hold of this thing as it's gone from this tiny seed into this fast growing tree, and hundreds of thousands of apps, millions of people using it, folk like yourselves, very kindly dedicating your time back into the open source projects and making it successful. So really, it's not about us; it's about everybody else that has also, I think, seen what I saw and has helped us make it what it is. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Team, I know that you've done quite a lot for Windows part of Flutter, let's say. I think I recently saw that you had some, if I'm not mistaken, it was an article in Medium, and you were playing around with Windows and Dart FFI. Do you want to elaborate on that and talk about it?
Yeah. And actually, because we have people who are so new, maybe we can do an overview of what this is going to do for us and what capabilities, and then maybe start digging into it a little bit.
Yeah. Sure. So Dart has this feature called FFI, or Foreign Function Interface, which is basically a direct path into C-style APIs and exports. So, as a lot of people know in Flutter, one way you can build plugins is use a thing called method channels, which essentially posts stuff asynchronously to kind of a backend that you might write in Swift or Kotlin or Objective-C. There's also this thing called FFI that is perfect when you've got a C-based API, of which there are, of course, many. The Unix POSIX API is a C-based API. The Win32, the Windows API is a similar C-based API. And so I started playing around with this just to see, well, what can we do with it? So it started with some of the work we were doing around just console apps, and there's all these different APIs you can get to get more interesting console things, to be able to write to the console in color or to clear the screen or things like that. And then I started sort of just pushing it a little bit further and seeing, well, okay, when we're running Dart on Windows, can we call other Windows APIs? And so I've been gradually building out, just really as a hobby project, this little thing to try and explore how close can we get to building full-fledged Windows apps, or using the Windows 32 API to build traditional apps without any Flutter at all. This is just pure Dart. So that's what this is all about. And again, as a product manager, I'm not a software engineer. That's not my day job. This has been a fun little hobby project for me personally to try and sort of explore and get deeper on. So yes, you can now use a little package I wrote called Dart Console, which prints, does pretty printing of console graphics, and you can even build a text editor with it. And I ported a simple example of that. But then I kind of went to the next level and was sort of trying to figure out, okay, well, can I actually do like the classic 1990s style Win32 application? There was a very famous guy in the Windows world, Charles Petzold, who wrote the quintessential book on Windows programming. And so that was sort of the next stage, was building, an app like Notepad or Calculator. Can I build that using just Dart? Again, no Flutter. And now this is really sort of getting to its sort of final sort of stage here, which is, if we can project all of the Windows APIs directly into Dart, then any Flutter app itself can use that. So if Flutter needs Bluetooth, if Flutter needs location awareness, or I don't know, camera access, or any other thing that Windows can provide, this provides this direct, fast path through to the Windows API. And so there's this package now called Win32, which is a little deep. It's in the gunnels of the thing. But if you're a plugin author and you want to build a Windows application, or you want to build the Windows version of your application, this is a great way to get what you need. And there's some fun little sort of examples of the kinds of things you can build there. And then lastly, just to kind of sort of extend to the final stage, with null safety now being ready for going to stable, you can now port all of these packages to null safety. And so I think this week I hit the post button on the 2.0 version that you see there at the top, which is the kind of culmination of all this in a null safe version. And we're encouraging every package author to do the same, to publish your null safety packages, so that when null safety goes stable, you have everything you need to be successful there.
All right, fantastic. So now it's time for our audiences that just go ahead and download these packages, play around, and send what you are building to team. So he's gonna be impressed.
Yeah, I'd love to see anything people have got.
There you go. Right. And make sure that you post it to Twitter with the hashtag 30 Days of Flutter.
Absolutely. You got the hashtag over there. Yes. All right. Scott, any question for teams from the comments?
Just one that we keep getting over and over again, folks. So maybe you can spread the word about this one. So the answer is going to come from the big guy himself. Tim, everyone's clamoring and asking about a certification in Flutter.
Oh, yeah.
And we've heard so much about this because people keep asking. And then there's the questions of how you would actually implement such a thing, who would make decisions about what's a certification, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. It's funny, I had a brief and perhaps ill-considered stint running the certification program at Microsoft before I came back to my roots. Certification is challenging at lots of levels, right? I mean, there's sort of particularly if you want to build something that is considered an industry certification, it's actually kind of pretty expensive to build and to do the process of testing across many different sort of questions, making sure the questions themselves don't get copied and shared around, making sure that it's a valid certification. And in general, we found that developers are much less interested in certifications than IT, system administrators, at least at Microsoft. That might not be true with Flutter. So we've sort of held off a little bit so far. It's interesting to know that lots of people are interested in it. I guess the question that I have for the community as a whole is, there are sort of probably three levels of certification. There's kind of like a self-assessment level where you can just validate, do I understand Flutter? What are the gaps in my personal knowledge? And we can probably implement that fairly easily as a lightweight, free of charge sort of skills test. Then there's sort of like a kind of the next level, which would be something more around, a kind of a formalized assessment of the kinds that you see often from the likes of Microsoft's and the Cisco's of the world, which is more of a kind of a multi-choice kind of question, which would be cheaper to produce, but runs the risk that it's not a good proxy for actual Flutter skills. It's sort of a test of memorization, maybe more than anything else. And then the top level, of course, is some kind of project-based solution where you give somebody a sort of a task to perform, and you have to produce it in a kind of a exam conditions, as it were. And that, of course, is a great proxy for somebody's actual knowledge. The problem is each of these things become much more expensive, right? Maybe the certification level was, I don't know, $100, and the full proxied exam thing was $500. It's interesting to sort of think about, well, which of those three things would people actually want, and what would people be willing to pay for? So, probably at the moment our instincts are to kind of start at that base level of a simple self-assessment that people can run through and learn from. But curious in others' opinions. So tweet at the link on your side there for the 30 Days of Flutter, and we'll read and see what folks are interested in.
Nice. Okay, one interesting question. Flutter Web. What I'm running into in reality is everyone is so excited about Flutter Web that I'm seeing big companies. I'm talking about worldwide conglomerate auto manufacturers, big insurance companies, a lot of others, and they want to use web with Flutter as their central starting point. Now, this is for anything from internal tools for their own salespeople out through apps that face external customers.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep having to tell them, the team says web is not production ready, and they don't care. They want to go charging ahead. So where is web right now in the eyes of a large corporation? Okay, I'm big, Forbes 100.
Yeah.
Where are we at, and do we have any kind of a timetable for when you would say web is ready?
Yeah, we've said on our public roadmap that our goal is to get Flutter Web ready this year. For those who are maybe a little bit more cautious, then that they may want to wait until it's in the stable channel before they adopt it. For those who are more adventurous, who are willing to be a little bit on the front lines, then we're ready for folk to start developing. We're ready for feedback. There are some other good examples that are live already, and we'll talk about some of those in the coming weeks. But I think if somebody has that compelling need and they're willing to be at that beta kind of level, sort of using a beta software, then I would say it's a reasonable thing to explore, and we can't wait to have a stable release for you all.
Very nice. Team, I've got some question for you as a director of Flutter and Dart, let's say. So how or where do you see Flutter and Dart in the next 5 years, let's say?
I think anybody who tries to predict in 5 years is always doomed to embarrassment. I think that the core themes that we talked about at Flutter Interact, our last major event, are very much still the case, right? We talk about Flutter as a platform for beautiful, fast, productive experiences from an open source platform. Those things will endure. But the scale and the breadth of those experiences continues to grow. More and more, we're leaning into this delivering that same experience or experiences like that across every platform, right? We've started with iOS and Android. We're extending it to places like the web, places like desktop. We think that it continues to grow in pervasiveness from that standpoint. And the interesting thing about ecosystems like this is they take a while to spin up, right? Whenever you introduce a brand new thing, it takes time just for training, for the community, for packages, for books to be written. All of these things just sort of grow. But as it starts to spin up, it becomes like a snowball rolling down the hill, and it starts to gather its own steam. So to anybody on this Q&A, you're still at the early stages. You're still an early adopter. You've got in before the rest of the world heard about Flutter. But our expectations is that snowball will continue to grow, and there'll be more tooling, and there'll be more content and more packages that will make this ever more popular. So yeah, our aspirations are pretty broad here. We want Flutter to be the default way to build applications for any platform. That's the short version of it. We've got a lot of work. The community is building on what we built today. We know we've got plenty of areas of developments to invest in. There's a whole bunch of issues on our GitHub repo. There's work that we want to do in terms of features, but we'll keep plowing on and try to build the best product we can for you.
Very nice, very nice. Scott, do you have any more questions? I have one more. So may I ask?
Go ahead.
Okay. I've got another question, team, that people are wondering if internally in Google, developers or Google itself is using Flutter. We know some apps are built with Flutter. And if you're using internally, are you serving them like similar to us, let's say, or is it a different way? So are they using the same way?
Yeah, Google 3 has an interesting engineering system. Google 3 is the name of our internal mono repo. It's a single repository. So it's like you can imagine all of Google's code checked into one single repo. and it's an incredible environment. It means that it's very easy for us to make changes. I say very easy; it's always difficult. But if we for example, add a new lint to the pedantic linter, which is our internal the linter that we use internally, we can make the changes. We can fix the warnings from that across every piece of code in the entire Google code base that uses or that flags that lint. And that's a very unique thing about Google. It's not the case that there are sort of like little siloed things that make it hard to make those changes. So yeah, there are some definite unique sort of constraints here. Every time we build Flutter, when you see a new dev builds, those are builds that have rolled into the Google free infrastructure that have been tested and are in active use across the entire Google monorepo. So that's the difference, if you like, between a master channel build and a dev channel build. The dev channel build is one that has gone through that cycle, and that's what every Google Flutter app is shipped on, is something that has been through that cycle. And then it goes obviously into beta and stable with cherry picks as necessary. But dev is essentially the channel that we use internally at Google. There are, as you say, tens of projects internally using Google, hundreds of developers, using Flutter every day to build Google apps. Some of which are public, some of which are not public, some of which will soon be public.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we built Flutter at least in large part for our own needs, because we have the same needs that most of you do. We need to get apps out to lots of platforms. We need to get, build apps quickly, and so Flutter gives teams like Google Pay, a great advantage for their own needs. So yeah, that's
very nice.
How we build it.
Yeah, I was going to mention that some apps that I know of. In fact, Google Pay recently went Flutter. Stadia, the entire UI for Stadia, I understand, is Flutter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Some of the Google Nest, the homes, also apparently are having some things done in Flutter. So
devices, the physical displays, they're all built 100% with Flutter. And there's others actually. Here's a little sort of sneak tip for your community. There are other apps that I think actually people haven't even written about that are using Flutter. And if you go and look at the licenses files that are buried, the things that nobody ever reads.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
In several places that there are apps that are built with Flutter that I've never seen anybody tweet or write about, that are Google apps. So there's a little...
You'll have to teach us how to scrape those files and get a list.
The public version. I mean, literally, like you can go to the Android, the Android app and look at the licenses file. But it seems like a lot of people don't actually go there. You don't need the source code. You just need the app, the published app.
Speaking of source code, a lot of people have been talking about Flutter's documentation because it had especially since, I guess, about IO19. The Flutter documentation has really gone off in another direction and has contained a lot of plain English explanations, links to videos, great examples. And this is right there in the source code. You don't have to go looking anywhere for it.
Right.
So how is Google ensuring that the documentation actually is consistent that way and that it's all moving in that direction?
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, the credit there belongs to Andrew Brogdon and the DevRel team, who've done tremendous work to produce better, explanations for different things, things like the widget of the week and Dartpad. And now those things being embedded directly in the documentation really helps there. And then, the other thing, is huge credit to everybody else. We did this fun thing, I think it was John Ryan, ran this thing called Adopt a Widget, where we tried to inspire people to say, yes, I'll be the, like you adopt the pet, an animal at the zoo, you're going to adopt your own widget and nurture it, because it's a great way for others to contribute to the project. That's another thing that sort of folk are sort of building in. And all those samples that are embedded physically in the source code get built and tested every time we ship a release of Flutter. So they automatically get updated to the latest version.
Sounds great. I understand that you probably have another meeting here shortly.
Oh,
or did that get canceled?
Final touches of wrapping up the content for the Flutter Engage event. So I'm editing videos. So
Neil, told me we're not allowed to talk about that.
I just want to make sure that everybody's attending. There's a lot of fun stuff. We've put a lot of work into that event, and I'm really excited to share it all with you. So you can see the camera and everything else behind me here. We've been busy recording, and yes, we're in front of times. So see you all on March 3rd for that.
Thank you,
See
team.
you then. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So then have a fantastic day, team, and thank you for joining us and answering all of these questions.
Of course, and thank you all again. It's so great to be part of this community with you all.
It's great having you here. So it's funny, Tim was mentioning they're looking forward to having everyone at Engage. Now, obviously, we can't really be at Engage as much as we would love to. But the GDG program is running what they call extended events. Now, if you're not familiar with GDGs, these are Google developer groups. They're meetup groups that are all over the world. You probably have one locally. Just look up Google developer group with the name of your city, or go ahead and look up Google developer groups in general, and you can get a list of them. The great thing about these is they don't just cover Google. We also have meetings about Apple products, Microsoft products, .NET. We get into Firebase, other areas of Google Cloud. As you see, I'm using the word we because I'm running GDG Cleveland. And there is a program, as I mentioned, called Extended. Now, what these are basically are watch parties, the same as if you were in person, but now we're running them remotely. And one of the great things about this is if you're in an area where you can't go to a GDG in person, you can still attend these. Okay, so if you happen to live in an area where you're not near any city, that's okay. You're still good. Find a GDG's event that you want to attend and sign right up. So again, these are going to be live on March 3rd during Flutter Engage. And again, it's called Flutter Extended. We'll be going over a number of different groups that are having them. First one, they happen to sign up first, so they get that lucky slot. Lawrence, Massachusetts, GDG Lawrence. So if you're in the Boston area, look them up.
Very nice. All right, Scott, fantastic. So I think now if someone is missing, for instance, Flutter Engage, they still have opportunity to go for Flutter Engage Extended in their local communities, so-called.
Or anywhere.
Or anywhere, of course.
You can sign up for someone else's GDG if you want.
Yes, absolutely. Very nice. They're telling me that Jay is ready, apparently. Let's get him to stage. Whoa. Hello.
Return of the glasses. How are y'all?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's quite dark in here, just for me though. But yeah, I'm doing well. I just recently moved, so I have like a temporary setup going. And my internet is still a bit dodgy, but that shouldn't ruin the fun of us getting to it. So
you know, Jay, you had a lot of you got a lot of attention last week, and I think people are impatiently waiting for you. So
yeah,
stage is yours.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
I don't mean to break in, but I just dropped due to an unstable connection. So as I come in and out, hopefully in more than out, you'll understand what's happening. So if I go poof, you know why.
Dope. Okay.
All right, Jay.
Coolio. Yeah, perfect. Okay, 1 second, because I just thought of something. Yeah, boy. Okay, cool. So, hi everybody. Let's see. where to start? If you don't know what we're doing, if I can get the frame on just me for a second there, Scott or Majid, that'd be great. If you haven't followed along for last week, we started building it up from scratch, right? And we're basically building this rocket guide app that allows you to scroll through SpaceX rockets, and we're starting the app from zero, right? So we did a Flutter create, and then we added some UI, and I left you with a little bit of homework to get to. So the assignment sort of was to get a REST HTTP call working. And so what we'll be doing today is add that call, add a little bit of plugin functionality, maybe add some more data, all types of stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I hope you'll follow along. And again, if we can get the link for the GitHub on screen in just a second, all this code is open source and already available. If you go to github.com/fluttercommunity/rocket_guide, if somebody in the chat could also put that there, that'd be great. You can follow along with everything that we're doing, and you can see for every episode that we have, you can check, oh, episode 1, episode 2, that kind of thing. So if you go there now and view episode 1, you'll be right where we're starting. If you go to the episode 2 branch, however, that will give you a preview of what's to come, because all the code is already there, and we're going to have a little bit of engagement with the chat, so that's going to be fun as well. So can I get the screen on the screen, I guess, please? And let's get started. Now, as always, if the code is not big enough or you want another font or whatever, well, don't mess with the font. I like this one, so that's just for me. But yeah, just let me know if anything needs to change. Can we get the screen on full screen, please? People don't need to see my pretty face. There we go. Thank you. So let's get started. Where did we last leave off? Well, the backend. Let's have a look over there. So I have the app running on the right here, and what we have is a little list of rockets that is currently it's faked rockets, right? We have this data hard coded in the app, and we can scroll through the pictures, and it's all nice. But we're gonna flare this up a little bit. So let's get started to that now. Where I left you off was with a URL that you can use to fetch the data for the rockets, right? That's our goal. So let's have a look. Why don't we first have a look at what we actually get from the API? So I did a little bit of preparation. If you go to main, you'll see that we have a backend here with an address that goes to this address, or rather a host URL that's this. So let's copy that and go to the backend, and what we're actually fetching is the rockets here. Well, if you take those two, then the URL that you get is this, and if you go there, if you have a little look yourself, you can see what kind of data we're getting. So this is the data that you get. Let me refresh just to make sure. There we go. So this is the data that we get. It's a list. It starts with a list, so it's JSON data, right? Starts with a list, and we have a bunch of rocket objects here. So this is one of them. It contains a payload, an ID, a whole bunch of data that we can use to put into the app. Most of the important data that I want to focus on in this session is at the bottom here. So it's like the name, stuff like active, boosters. We have our first flight date. That could be interesting. A Wikipedia page, and the description that we already have, including the ID. So let's have a look here. How can we properly implement this? So let's start with the JSON stuff. Or rather, let's start with the HTTP stuff, actually, and then we'll get to the JSON parsing in just a little bit. So we have our URL, and what we can do now is first we fetch it. Now, if we fetch the data from that URL. If we have a look at the pub spec here, you can see that we currently have these packages added, which is Meta, Google Fonts, and Provider. I'm going to add one more. I'm going to add a little comment here, used for REST calls, whatever, that's fine. Now I'm gonna, I can do two things here, or I can go to pub.dev. Let me go there right now, and let's look for the HTTP package, because Dart natively supports HTTP, but this package can make it a lot easier for us. Let me actually do this. Oh, my filter should work, but it doesn't. That's okay. So we can use this HTTP package, and that's all good. Now I see that the latest version here is 0.12.2, but what we could also do is use the pubspec assist extension and then type the package that we're looking for. and that's HTTP, removes the comments for us, but that's okay. And I'm going to add a little caret there. So now we have the latest version in here. And actually, it's a more recent version than the one that's listed on pub.dev, but that's probably, yeah, we're restricted here. So I'm actually just going to add the version that was suggested to us. Let's see if that works. Great. So now we have the HTTP package in place. That's going to make our life a whole lot easier. So let's import that. Now I'm going to do something special here. I'm going to add the HTTP package, but there's one little, it's not an issue, but it's a thing. So say that we want the data, we can just do a, let's say our response is going to be, we're going to get this URL. Now this is all fine, but this get is a little bit ugly. I'd love for this to ideally be something like http.get. That would be a lot more nice to look at, I think, because that really tells us that we're using the get method on the HTTP package. So I'm going to add a little thing here that says as HTTP. And so now whenever I do HTTP dot, we get everything that the HTTP package offers, but we get it in a little bit of a nicer way. So, and that's our first line actually already added. So using the get method, we can get the data that this URL will provide us. So that's perfect. Now, let's say that we get that data. Let's see what our response is. That's interesting. So this doesn't look like a regular HTTP response. And that's correct, because this is actually not an HTTP response at all. It's a future of a response, as you can see, right? So this is a future because we don't know when this data might come in yet. But we've put async here, and we're returning a future ourselves. So what we can do is just say await, and there we go. So now, whenever we call this function, it will wait for our HTTP stuff to get in. We will wait on that. And once we have that, then we'll continue executing our code. So once we have the response, which you can see right here, now we do actually have a response. Let me make sure that our API is working properly. I'm going to do that using if response.status code is not 200, right? A status code of 200 means that the result was successful, that the request was successful rather. Once we have that, or rather if it's not the case, then there must have been some error or some other status codes that we don't expect to happen. If that's the case, then we can throw an error. Now we can throw like a fancy exception here, but just for time's sake, I'm going to throw a regular exception and just give it the reason that it failed. So that's the reason phrase. So that's perfectly fine for what we need to do now. So now that we are sure that the data that we get is what we, is like the request was successful, as soon as we know that, what we can do next is actually get the data itself. So the data that the response provides is in the body. So that data, let me call that body for now. So we have a body here on the response of that request, and that's in this case a string. So that's interesting. So we get a string back, and if you think about it, that makes sense, right? Now that string can contain any data that we want or any data that the API returns to us, but we know that it's JSON data, so we can actually convert it from a string into a JSON object. Now let's do that. So our body is a string, and we need to decode that into a JSON, into like an object that we can work with, right? Well, luckily for us, Dart already has that built in. So we can say final JSON data, for example, equals, and then I'm going to type JSON here, and you can see that it's automatically importing it from Dart convert. It's a little bit cut off, but there we go. And this JSON object, if I go to the top, you can see that Dart convert was added. If I go here, it has a decoder, encoder, all this cool stuff, but what I'm looking for is JSON.decode. So using that, I can enter the body, right? The response body that we got, which is, just to make it clear, all this stuff, right? This as a big string is our data. We give that to our JSON decoder, and what we get out of this is a JSON object. Now, since in runtime, when this runs, we are not sure 100%, the compiler cannot know what this data will return. This will return dynamic, and I don't like working with dynamic, not when I can avoid it. So what we can do is have a look at our data, and you can see that this is a list. This entire data object is a list. And now this contains other objects inside it, but that's fine. What I want to do is make sure that we treat it as a list as well. So I am going to use as list. So now it's going to be a list of dynamic, and that dynamic is fine. We're going to make sure that that goes away and it has a proper rocket on it instead. So now we have the JSON data, and what we can do here if we want to is we can just I'd say we can print that JSON data. Let's have a look here. It's going to be a little small because my terminal window is all the way over here, but that's okay. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. And then we're going to print this. And now if I restart this app, oh, here we go. There we go. So it's a little bit short. Let me expand this. There we go. So this is, oh, it's extremely wide. That's why this is happening. Well, it's a whole bunch of data, but it is right? Because it starts as a list and then it has a bunch of objects here, a bunch of maps, in fact. So our engine is coming in clearly. That's perfect. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller again and put you to the side because we're not going to need you for a long while now. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So we're getting our JSON data. That's cool. Now, each one of those JSON objects, each one of those maps rather, needs to be converted into a rocket. And we can do that. So we can, for example, say that our rockets is the JSON data that we have, and we're going to map that. So, and once we've mapped it, we're going to make it into a list again, just to make sure. So how are we going to map this? Well, the map function actually takes in a function, right? And changes every object in the list. So it generates a new list where each object is changed according to this function. So I'm going to call this like JSON map, for example. And let's now make our rockets. So for every JSON map, we have a little bit of data because every JSON map represents one of our rockets. So for example, what I could do is say return a rocket where, for example, let's start with the ID. So the ID is actually in the JSON map. If we have a look, let's keep our API as a reference. If we go to the bottom of one of these objects, we can see that it has a field on it called ID, which is perfect. And that's a string. So we can immediately use that if we want to. So our rocket's ID is going to be the JSON map's ID index. Oops, let me type that right. There we go. And the same goes for a whole bunch of other fields. We can use this description here, which is just the description. I called it JSON map, didn't I? There we go. And active, well, that's a Boolean, and that's also natively supported. So that's going to be active. And we have boosters, that's also the same. See, and we can keep going like this if we want to. I can keep making the same mistake again if I want to. We have the name, obviously, JSON map name. There we go. I'm going to move that to the top because I think that's a little bit more important. And then at the bottom, we have Flickr images. Now, I've tried this beforehand, and I hope you have as well, because I want actually this. So this is actually a list, right? Flickr underscore images. Let's have a look. This is actually a list of, a list of strings. Let's have a look here. Yep, it is. However, in runtime, we don't have a complete clear picture of what this data is, right? We are not 100% sure what data is in here. That, and because of other reasons, it's a good idea, and it's actually necessary to do a sort of a typecast. It's not really a typecast, but yeah. Try to follow along. So we're going to make a list of string from the list that we get here, just to make sure that the type is correct. And actually, looking at this, we're already done. The only thing we need to do is remove our temporary data and replace it with the rockets. So there we go. So now we get the response. If we get a response that we don't expect, we throw an exception. Otherwise, we get our body. We change it into the data as a list, and then we map each one of those objects into an instance of a rocket. Perfect. I'm saving this. I'm doing a hard restart, and let's have a look. Hey, there we go. So that's actual data coming from the API. In, what is that? Well, there are spaces here, but like, I guess 10 lines, something along those lines. So let's have a look here. Starship. So this wasn't in our app before. This comes right from the API. Starship, a super heavy rocket, represents a fully reusable, blah, 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 all good stuff. Okay, cool. Now, you can imagine that you might want to use this bit of the logic more than just here. I don't want to keep rewriting this part, and it's also going to be hell of a mess to maintain properly. So I actually want to move this logic here of creating the rocket into a function that's on the rocket. Now I can do a couple of things. I can make like a static function here that just returns a rocket instance that says like from JSON, for example. And we know that that needs to be a map of string and dynamic because that's the data that a JSON object should shape. So, or that's a little bit of a bad explanation. Every single object should be a map of string dynamic, right? That's the JSON data that we expect. So, what can we do here? Well, we have our static function, but actually there's one little bit of nice dart that I want to use here. I'm going to make it a factory. And a factory can be used just like a regular static function, but it has some restrictions on it that make sure that we always return a proper instance or a subclass. So that's perfect. So I'm going to make this a factory, which is just a function that returns a rocket. And I'm going to take this logic and pull it up and put it over here. Return a rocket. And now I did actually name it JSON, so I'm going to name this JSON map instead. And there we go. So now, instead of rocket and adding all the fields, I can just do rocket from JSON, give it the JSON map. And actually, since it's like this now, I can make this an expression body. And here is one more tip for you. I'm going to try to do this if it worked for us. That's unfortunate. Okay, this is perfect. So for every object in this list of JSON data, we map it into a rocket of which the factory we have defined here. And then we convert it into a list and then we return it. Let's restart this. Nothing really has changed, so it should be the exact same. And there we go. Perfect. Now let's put you into dark mode as well. That would be nice. There we go. And here is all our rocket data. Perfect. If anybody could tell me how we're on time, then I know what I can still do. Let's also have a look at a couple of extra fields here. So for example, what can we add? Let's have a look at the response that we got here. We have the name, we have active, we have stages, which we could add. Ooh, first flight, that's a good one. I'd like perhaps the first flight, which is a date, which we could add. And the Wikipedia might be nice to include as well. See that I have 10 minutes, so that's perfect. Let's do that real quick. So the Wikipedia is easy because that's just a string. So we can add that field quite easily. Let's add it here first, this.wikipedia, and it's going to be a string. And over here, we do actually need to provide that. So that's going to be JSON map again. You can see I'm not used to this. And then add the Wikipedia. Let's save that. Now let's show it on our detail screen just to make sure that we have it. So let me go over to the padding here. Let me just add a little bit of ugly text just so we can make sure that it works. Wikipedia, there we go. Let's refresh and ooh, that is interesting. Why is this null? Well, let's have a look here. I did a hot reload. However, we've already fetched this data. And when we fetched the data, we didn't include a Wikipedia field. So we cannot show a null field, right? A text widget cannot have a null value. So let's do a hot restart, and that should fix all our problems because then we'll reload all of our data. Let's have a look. And there we go. Very ugly, but it's there. That's our Wikipedia page. So what we can do later on in the stream is actually navigate to this page using a plugin called URL Launcher, which uses the native web browser to display a web page. And that's perfect. That's just what we need. Let me add a couple of other fields here. Now, while I do that, I'd like to remind you that all this code is up on GitHub, but not just that. This live stream will also be rewatchable at any point in time. So you can pause right now or go back or watch it later. So if you can't follow along, that's perfectly fine. You can always have a look later on or during the live stream and pause and play whenever you want to. So let's take this first flight here. That's fun to see. So I'm gonna add it, let's say here first. this dot first flight. Now this is going to be a datetime, right? We can keep it as a string, but it's way prettier if it's a datetime because then we can do all sorts of fun maps on it. So first flight. Now how do we go from a string to a datetime? Well, there's a function, a static function on datetime, and that's datetime.parse. So if we have a look at that, constructs a new datetime instance based on the formatted string. So this formatted string can be a lot of things, and Dart will automatically understand what kind of date it's looking at. And I happen to know that it will pick up this date perfectly. Now, obviously, there is a time zone associated and all that kind of stuff, and dates and times is a whole mess throughout the programming world. But for now, we can just assume that that date is set in our time zone, and we're completely fine. So let's parse that. So what's that date? Well, it's the JSON map first flight. There we go. So I need to hot restart again because we need to fetch the data again. And then let's add it as that piece of text here. Now we're going to make this a lot prettier later on. So that's called first flight. Now this is a datetime, so we can display it directly. So I can do a .to string here. And that would work. That's completely fine. However, I'm more a fan of string interpolation because that's a lot shorter. There we go. That works. It's the exact same thing. Let's hot reload, then go to our Starship, and hey, there we go. It's actually not active yet. It's set to do its first flight on the 1st of December 2021. That's great. Cool. That's good to know. So let me check if I have some other fields, and then we can do UI in the next little bit. Where did I keep that tab? It's right over here. So what is also cool to show? I did actually have a couple of fields that I wanted to show before. Let's do a couple more. So what I think is interesting is these, the height, diameter, and mass. Now, I live in the EU, in the Netherlands to be precise, if you didn't hear by my accent already. So what I like to do is add the height meters and the diameter in meters and the mass in kilogram here. But you can see that this is a nested object. But that's no problem because when we have our JSON map, when we use our factory function, which is again just a static function on the rocket that returns an instance of the rocket, it's just the same. It's there. Well, there are a couple differences, but you can see it as the same thing for now. What we can do is say that we have our, what you would call it. Wow, I'm having a little blackout on the spot. There we go. So let's get the height in meters. What we can do is say height, which I'm going to define in a little bit. The height is going to be the JSON map's height. And this again returns a map as we know from the data that we looked at. So the JSON map's height, and then we want it in meters. So that works perfectly. We can do the same for the diameter. That's also the diameter in meters. And then for our mass, I want it in kilograms. So that's going to be the mass, and then we're going to get the kilogram value for that. Now let me add those here. Let me do so a little bit quicker using some Visual Studio Code magic. Now I'm going to make this, let's make it a double because we might have some floating point precision. We might have some decimal numbers going on. So let's make sure that we can save that value. So this is going to be a double. Now, if I try and run this, let's see what happens. If I hot reload or hot restart rather, ooh, we have an error. That's interesting. Now, why would that be? Let's have a look. I'm going to go to our little screen right here. Let's see, our home screen. I'm going to show the error on screen so that you can see what we're looking at. So we're going to show right here snapshot.error. That means that this cannot be constant anymore, but that's fine. Int is not a subtype of double. So you might see this sometimes more often, depending on if you do a lot of JSON deserialization yourself. But one way of fixing this for the time being, and we can go over this more in the latter part of this stream, or by answering questions in the comments. But what we can do here is sometimes we receive an integer from the height, diameter, and mass, but sometimes we receive a double. Sometimes we receive a floating point number. So to make sure that we always convert it to a double, I'm going to say I want the height, diameter, and mass as a num, which is the basic type for any sort of number in Dart. And so now that we know that it's a number, we can convert it to a double. So if it's already a double, we don't do anything. It won't do anything for us. But if it is an integer, this way we can convert it into an integer. Okay, perfect. So now that we have done that, let's refresh, hard restart, and we don't crash anymore. Now let's just, for the sake of it, have a little look at what we have. So let's say diameter, height, and mass, not weight. That's something different. There we go. So now we have some more data to work with. That's perfect. So what I want to go over in the next little bit of this stream later on is to have a look at how we can display this data in a pretty way, add a little bit more UI, and even add a little plugin that allows us to open the Wikipedia page for every single rocket right within our app. This should get you started. I also want to do a little bit more of a community engagement. So please do stay tuned. And again, if you want to have a look at the code, go to our GitHub, github.com/fluttercommunity/rocket_guide. I'm sure the link will show up any second. And try it out yourself. Try running the app and try continuing what I've built here and make something cool for yourself. And I hope to see you later today at the end of this live stream, where we'll continue to build some nice UI and leave you with a little challenge at the end, have a little bit of engagement with the community, and that way we'll all have a pretty cool app to be working with. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for doing that, Jay. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
And look forward to more. Yeah, so I don't know how long that second session is going to be. It's basically until Jay burns out and falls asleep. There's really no limit to how long that goes. But right now we do have a couple of other things scheduled before we can get back to you there. So, Majid, there was some questions regarding the GDG and the Flutter Extended and how people could attend. So yes. I wanted to go over a couple of things real quick. Yes. Let me see here. GDG, the Google Developers Group. Now, this is a program here where you can find meetups and groups of developers. These are supported by Google, but they're not official Google events. It's a very strange quasi relationship. In short, if you help run official Google events that are sponsored, they will pay for pizza. Basically. Other than that, though, if it's not an official Google event, then no, they're not going to pay for everything all the time. However, it is really a fantastic program. You learn so much. And again, it's not just about Google. They have meetings about everything. iOS, iOS, Microsoft, you name it, Bitcoin, blockchain. We do it all. So you can look this up and find your local group, and you do that right there. And another interesting thing is if you go over here and click on that little spyglass, I had to do a lot of different searches in order to find the right results without a bunch of garbage. So you want to search specifically for Flutter Engage. And so far, now this program was only announced last week, and 23 different GDG groups have already started to sponsor them. So there's Hanover, Germany. There's Lawrence, Lawrence, Massachusetts. We have several in Russia. If you notice, there's 3 in Russia right there. Another one in Germany, Italy. So you don't even need to speak English. Okay, just find somebody who's doing one in your native language. There's Portuguese right there. You know, Ireland. I know a couple of guys from Ireland. Sometimes I wonder about their English, but not to insult the Irish. I am Irish. But that is how you can find the events if you're looking for them. Again, you go to the GDG website in general, gdg.community.dev, and search for Flutter Engage. And I am being poked because there are also quite a number of GDG groups who operate in Arabic, including Flutter Egypt is working with GDG. And also, I think there's a group called GDG Jeddah in Saudi Arabia that we may have heard of.
Yes. Sounds familiar. All right. So now you know where to go and find your local groups, especially Google Developer Groups, GDGs, and sign up for extended events. And that's it. And I see that someone is telling me that we have some amazing guests.
Really?
Who are they?
I don't know. Now,
let's bring them up.
Let's see here.
Hello.
PK. Now,
hi everyone.
And
How
Mike.
are you? Hey Scott.
Hello.
Hey Majid.
Hey,
hello.
Hi.
So these two gentlemen, you may not know them under these names. Okay. PK, Pawan Kumar, is also known on YouTube. You may have seen a few of his videos if you ever go to the channel MTech Viral.
Yeah. Correct.
So how long have you been doing that now?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you'll ask in terms of Flutter, then I think it's been 4 years, and in total, I guess it's maybe 5 years, 6 years. I mean, 5 years. Yeah, almost.
So you've got a couple
So,
of
yeah,
videos.
Yeah, just a couple of 500 videos.
A couple of 500. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Now
it's,
I understand.
It's a lot of.
Now we do have a little bit of a delay here, so we're working with that. Again, we're all over the world. Flutter's everywhere. But I understand a couple of those videos might even be about Firebase.
Yes, some of them. And yeah, I guess we already have someone to talk about Firebase.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, Mike, you might not know him as Mike. You might not even know him as Invertas. But I think you may have heard of the Flutter Flyer plugins.
That would be me. Sorry for making you redo your videos by changing the API recently. But yeah, I'm Mike, and been working on Flutterfire for about the last year now. And great to be on the stream. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. It's you're making working with Firebase a lot easier, which I appreciate.
I'm trying.
So, yeah.
We're trying.
So, the Flutterfire plugins. What? How many different plugins are there within this, and what can people do with them? You know, as beginners, they're not even sure what the tools are.
Oh gosh. I guess, yeah. So if you're familiar with Firebase, then you would kind of get the picture that there's pretty much a plugin for every Firebase service that exists under the sun. You kind of, I can share my screen. 1 moment.
I already shared the Flutter Fire.
Yeah. Beat me
Yes,
to it.
go.
Okay. So yeah, so on the homepage here, you can see all the extensions. So yeah, it's pretty much, well, a lot of packages. I think in total there's about 44 packages that we maintain at the moment on the entire repository. Yeah, for every Firebase service, if you need to build, like a database, backend, authentication, there's pretty much a package for your kind of backend needs there with Firebase.
Nice.
Very nice.
Nice. I know authentication's a big one that everybody uses. So you can use that for Google single sign-on, I believe, as well as email and password. And...
Yeah, multiple OAuth providers, email password, email sign-in links. Yeah, there's plenty of various auth providers. I think quite a few of them are covered on the docs as well. And just like various examples there.
Very cool. Very cool. So PK, I take it you've worked with these a little bit.
Yes, I have. Like not recently, but yeah, in the past for sure.
What have they been like to work with? What have you done with them?
Yeah, man. Like so like initially I remember, I'll tell you a very good story about it. Like If you'll talk about like couple of years back, whenever there was, a new update or something coming up with any of the Firebase plugin, I used to make a video, and that was too early that almost all of my videos are now outdated because of, there has been a lot of changes here and there. So
That's Mike's fault.
I
Full
don't think so.
responsibility.
I don't think so. At that time, Mike was even there. But yeah, I mean, the initially when I used to work on it, I mean, there had been some issues, but apart from that, it's been amazing. Like the things which you can do in a very less time is the amazing part of all these Flutter Fire plugins. Especially for the people like me, especially like the all kind of developers who does not have like the backend people to work on so many stuff, but rather they are individual developers who have to create a lot of things by themselves. So it's been pretty fun. I like the most, I guess, the cloud messaging part as well as the cloud Firestore. And authentication is something which, I mean, we had some other ways of doing it initially, but yeah, I mean, it's good to have.
It's very nice.
It's definitely
Very
made
nice.
my life easier.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
You got something in mind?
Yeah, we have actually some question for Pawan, and some people are asking like, how do you actually manage your time and do a lot of cool stuff?
Oh yeah.
You're pretty active.
I don't know. I don't know myself, but yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say is that like I have tried to manage things in a proper way, but sometimes it does not work like that. Like initially, I'll tell you, like before COVID, I had lesser time than what I have, right? Like, but at that time, I was even more active. But after lockdown happened and all these things happened, like my schedule kind of changed a lot, and unfortunately I have been like going through recently a lot of health related issues as well. So I don't want everyone to be like me. Please don't try to do so many things, because sometimes it just gets too much and you don't realize it. But apart from that, I think it's pretty easy, right? If you just try to give or balance things in a very positive way, like you give your work some time, some like kind of experiments which you want to do, you can do it on weekends, for example, and also give some time to your family, and yeah, I mean, that should be fine and you will be very happy.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's
Very nice.
believe me, the family is very important. I'm fortunate that I have a partner and a dog that won't let me work past 4 o'clock. Majid can tell you. Yeah, that's 4:01. It's time to play with the dog, and she can tell time very well.
Yes. All right, Mike, we have one question for you here. Flutter Fire, amazing plugins. Thanks for your hard work. And people are asking like for different platform support. We see that you've done a great job for web and Mac and Linux and other platform. So we just want to know like how's the progress and when we see all of the platforms are supported and things like that.
Yeah, so I think mobile and web has kind of been our focus for the last couple of months now, and I think going forward it's going to be more of the same for the remaining plugins. So if you've been following along, we've kind of been reworking kind of the plugins in groups, and like we've done core, auth, Firestore, functions, Crashlytics, messaging, and storage, I believe. And then going forward, we'll be working on the rest, probably starting in the next couple of weeks, to kind of add. So for the remainder of the packages, if it doesn't have web support already, we will add web support. Same for Mac OS support, we'll do the same. And then kind of other platforms, it's stuff we'd like to do, but we're not yet sure on when that's going to happen.
Hmm.
Okay, but we are seeing the progress actually. So at least myself and you are doing a lot of work, and thanks on behalf of the community. Thank you for this amazing job.
Definitely, because that's I mean, a lot of people, again, as I mentioned when Tim was here, a lot of people are looking towards web, and the ability to be able to use your packages both with mobile and web really has been great.
Yes, absolutely. Scott, do you have any question for Pawan? If you don't, I have one.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes.
I'll make some up. No. I'm actually going to go fishing on YouTube. Let's see. YouTube, I need questions.
Yes, if you have any question, just leave it in the comment. We are following the question right now, so don't forget to add them there. And hashtag 30 days of Flutter. Don't forget to add before your question. Pawan, so when we started 30 days of Flutter, it seems that you also started 30 days of Flutter as well somehow, and you are following every day and having some videos. How does it go? Like, all good?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good story behind it. In fact, Scott knows me very because we have spent a lot of time together in one day itself. So
In a car.
basically, yeah, I
Stuck
just
together
missed
in a
that
car
time,
for
by the way.
6 hours.
Yeah. So, like a lot of people don't know or probably have like just observed that initially when I started creating Flutter tutorials, like it was used to be in Hindi, right? But at that time, there were very, very less people who were looking for Hindi content, but rather there were a lot of people from around the world who were looking for Flutter content. So I jumped to English and then I continued with English only. But then what happened is like in last few months or maybe last with last year, I realized a lot of Hindi people are coming and joining and trying to explore Flutter, but there is no sufficient Hindi content for them. And then I thought, like, when this 30 days of Flutter started, I thought, like, now let's give it a little bit rest for the English audience because there is a lot more content available everywhere. But let's try to give a chance to Hindi people as well if I can do something for them. So then I thought, okay, let's do like 30 videos. I know it's very challenging because it's not easy to produce video every day. And also I didn't want to, make one set of video and then upload them one by one for 30 days because what I could miss there is that I don't know like how people are consuming that content every day and how what kind of problems they are facing. So yeah, that's how it started. It's has been going pretty well. Yesterday I was not able to I have been going through a little bit problem these days. So yesterday I didn't put any video, but then today I matched it. So looking forward for next 13 more days, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
So we'll definitely do that.
I've got one from Mike. You may or may not have anything to say about this. I'm not sure. But how is the integration of Stripe with Flutter and Firebase?
Yeah, so from Stripe and Firebase perspective, I can answer that. I think, I don't know if you've heard of Firebase extensions. It's basically kind of like pre-packaged Firebase solutions, kind of like, like cloud functions that you can just click and deploy kind of thing. There is some official Stripe ones of those now that provide you with these pre-built functions that you can click and deploy, and it kind of gives you like APIs on your Cloud Functions interface to build checkout sessions, to accept payments, things like that. So from that perspective, there's already kind of like a well-defined integration there officially through Stripe and Firebase. I can paste the link in shortly. From a Flutter perspective, I probably not 100% sure on that. I'd say it's a bit more trickier because you've obviously got the various platform rules for payments. But yeah, certainly from a Firebase perspective, yeah, there's already some official kind of solutions there.
Very nice.
Very cool.
We have actually one question for Pawan, actually.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. You've done quite a lot of YouTube, Pawan, and developers are asking if they want to start a YouTube channel, what is your advice and how even they can do that?
Yeah, okay, so it's a good one. I think it's fine until unless you are really passionate about doing something. It's okay to like like it's very easy to start a YouTube channel. First of all, if you use YouTube for watching videos, it's that simple. Like you just have to go and connect your Google account, and then you can just start uploading your videos. It's that simple. And I mean, if someone wants to create content, what I would say is that you can create content which you love the most. Like for example, when I upload Flutter videos, I enjoy like doing that, because Flutter is something which I love. Or you can say that it's something where like when I started uploading videos, I also learned so many things, because for a particular video I had to a little bit search about things, that okay, why this is not working or why that is working. So this level of, I think, kind of excitement you need, or you should have desire to learn something. That's when you can open a channel. And then I think in a long run what you need is probably consistency, because otherwise it's very tough to like manage things. But apart from that, I don't think everyone needs to be an YouTuber, because it's like it's totally fine if you see like a lot of people doing it but you are not doing it, because it's not needed all the time. And you can probably like you might not be a very good content creator in terms of video, but you can be a very good content creator in terms of blog posts. For example, there are a lot of people in Flutter community, they can write like really good articles, which I can say that I'm not like a really good person for that job. I can definitely bring some of them, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I'm not the expert. But in terms of video, I think I can, like, it comes natural to me. So yeah, it's easy for me. So you have to, like, at the end, see that what you can do better, or maybe just try all of them and decide what works better for you. I hope I answered right.
Yes, very nice, very good advices. Scott, do you have anything else to ask or share?
Yeah, I actually have one that's rather interesting. I was just double checking into it. How do we make a grid view which has a cell count that can cover the screen? Because gridview.count builds rather slowly. That is a question that kind of phases from here to the general Q&A with Adahel and Tomek, but why don't I go ahead and take that one real quick while we move from one to the other. What I did in my own was I used a Gridview builder instead of using Gridview count. And then when trying to determine how many items, what I did was I looked at the layout builder and found out how wide the area was that I had to work with in pixels, and then divided that by my item width plus some for padding. And so as I make the screen wider and wider, it will just keep adding items all the way across the screen, and the number of items is dynamically decided depending upon how wide the screen is. And this is what I used with Flutter Web, because you can, of course, make it that narrow or that wide. So I've been stalling for time. Are the other guys ready yet?
Yes, Tomek, are you here? Yes.
Yes,
Randall.
I am. Hey, everybody, again.
And
Hello, Randall.
Oh, Randall jumped in there.
Okay, so
I was
what
muted.
question-
I'm here. Yes.
I think we have. We also have Adahel +1.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Is somebody else
Yeah,
going to answer questions?
but he made like kind of quick question, but yeah, she had a lot of questions.
Wow.
But-
All right,
Well, I'll
it's
tell you
time.
what, it's getting a little crowded here. I'm going to step out for a little bit, but I will catch up with you folks in a little while.
Thank you. First of all, if you have any question right now, it's time. Just ask. We already got a lot of questions in the comments. I'm going to ask, and the guys here, they can answer your questions. But if you have any other right now, please use this hashtag and ask your question. So let's go for the first question, maybe this one. If we can initialize a class inside it, why we make a model class separately? If anyone understand, maybe you can answer.
I don't know what the antecedent of it is there.
I think it was related to Jay's presentation. Anybody recalls what this might be?
I think maybe it was for the class factory that he made about the from JSON. I don't know. Maybe it's that. I'm not sure. But also with this is kind of a solid principle stuff. So it's always good to have it like that. I don't know. I don't want to say much because maybe I don't understand the question right. But I would say there's something about that. So it's better to have it. You have to do an dependency injection or whatever. It's not just this case. It could be in many ways. So let's keep it at that. If you have a question more directly, can put it again.
Yes. If
Or
you
maybe
sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
or maybe he's asking about like the JSON keys, probably, that why we made a model class for it, like rather than just using the keys directly. Maybe that. Then I think it will be a great idea to always have your model classes, because like let's say you have to like use them at so many places, then you probably can mess up with keys. And if you have all those at one place, then it will be always easier for you to just use your model classes and use them everywhere, wherever you want.
It also insulates you if the API changes at any point.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yes, correct. All right, so we've got another question. Any of you, how I can connect my Flutter application with MongoDB?
I can take it.
Yes.
If you want. I mean, like I did a tutorial again for this, like where you can use Node.js and you can use something like MongoDB Atlas and you can connect them together. You can use that for database, and then you can create some REST APIs which you can consume with Flutter, if that's what is what you are looking for, like in terms of connecting Flutter to a MongoDB. But yes, if you have like if you think that you just want to replace the locally storage with MongoDB rather than using SQLite, then I think MongoDB, I'm not sure, but you can definitely use file related things. Maybe you can use something called Hive or some other options. I guess there are multiple options similar to Hive.
Yes.
Yep.
Anyone else? All right, so we've got another question then. And that's actually a common question that I've seen also on Twitter a couple of times. And it says that sometimes I struggle a bit with Dart and Flutter code architecture. You know where to define variables and widgets due to stateless and stateful widgets. Any guidance or any proper guidance that you guys want to give to this person? Rohit.
I can add something here. So this doesn't differ too much from like normal other mobile development. So preferably you divide your application in features. So you have a folder saying login, you have folders saying like dashboard, main dashboard, and so on. So you have those different folders. And first of all, this stateful and stateless widget, it doesn't matter which one is it. Put it in, I don't know, login page thing. Like try to separate it, keep it small, but put it in one thing. And other thing that you share, like at least I put like in a share folder that like different types of generic widgets I put. So this is at least what I do. Anybody else has any approaches?
I'm not sure if I mean, I know what you're saying about it. It's more like architecture, call it whole app architecture, but I don't know if he's talking about like when you have a stateful or stateless one, when you have to use one inside or in one class or the other for stateful. I don't know if I get a little confused in the question, but yeah, first of all, like Tomek says, that's the right thing to do. It's starting from there. And after that, it's just like if it's inside your class only what you're thinking about, it's always good to have it's after you, because inside the class, it doesn't matter really. You can taken from whatever you want. So you can put it on the top, all your variables, and then move down, and you have like one method in there. They're going to be using other method. Just keep it together to be like move back and forward easily. But I really, this is more like the way you like to do it. It's not like a proper, it's either a wrong way to do it. It's just like the way you like it, and it's understandable.
I actually stumbled across something that I was sort of amazed was in there and written as well as it was, although not surprising again, as Tim said earlier, they've got, teams of people that are all really looking at the documentation. But if you go to the state documentation for the Flutter API, there is a whole 3 or 4 paragraphs in the middle. It's like, why is build in state? What does that do for us? How does it all work put together? And that's right there in the state documentation, trying to help you along about understanding what goes in state and what can be a stateless instead. Very, very cool stuff. So just go to the API documentation and search for state. You'll find it. Of course, search for state. Probably got a lot more stuff too, but try it.
Very nice. We've got another question. That's also this question. I've seen it a couple of times on Twitter as well. So if the question is like, how can we use Planner widget and how multi-threading works actually? So any advice?
I'm not familiar with a Planner widget. I'll have to go look it up. I can do the multi-threading thing though.
Yes, let's go for multi-threading. So if you want to explain what the Planner widget means, maybe you should write in the comment, please.
Well, maybe it's already an existing widget, but I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar. Might be something in Pub, though. You never know. Pub keeps adding so many new things. It's like it's tough for me to even keep close to track of it. It's awesome. That's really, really awesome that this is all happening. It's an exciting time to be involved with Flutter.
Yes.
But how is multi-threading used? So one of the things you need to get is that there's like 2 layers of multi-threading. There's the kind of threading within a particular isolate, sort of your main isolate, your UI isolate, that basically allows for async await, things like that, and futures and streams to handle properly. There's also another kind of multi-threading that you get when you start introducing other isolates other than your UI. And you can do that to put some background processing on, hopefully you've got a multi-core machine, you can put some of that processing on a different core. And it really works well. There's plenty of great videos, I think even by the people here in the channel, have done some great videos on that stuff. But that's something to look for as well. I think and you need to really understand that there are both kinds of multi-threading. I saw somebody the other day on Stack Overflow immediately jump for the compute function as his or her way of trying to jump something. I said, what are you doing there? It just adds more complication because now you have to go over this. You have to launch an isolate. You have to squirrel the data over and squirrel the data back. Keep it simple. This could have been done with a simple future. So yeah. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I would like to add something on this because sometimes also people trying to delegate everything to another thread. But this could also burn out your phone memory RAM. So you need to be careful because if you're creating more and more and more, this will affect also the performance of your app. Besides, the future class has a micro task that can help you with this. If you see the event loop, you will look at about this information. Is this a feature, a regular way to use the feature, and you have a micro task? This is another way, another keyword is created on top of this, and it's exists in another place of your app, but inside your process. So just like be careful with this. It's not for do everything on there. just keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's many ways to think you're beating the system somehow by using all these microtask schedules and things like that, and schedule after frame, things like that. But start with the thing doing the way you see in the docs. Start with that. Only add that other stuff if you've described the problem to somebody and they said, no, actually you need to do the schedule after thing going on. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And so I've got some question on Twitter actually. Someone is asking about advices on Flutter testing. So I bet all of you have some maybe advice here. So feel free. We can start maybe with Pawan.
Do it. Just do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say that the like sooner you do it, the comfortable you will get with it, right? Like I know initially, like for me as well, it's been like when I started doing some testing initially for Android application, the native application, it was very tough to be very honest. Like Flutter one is actually very easy. What we used to do like few years back. So and my main like what I can suggest in this scenario, like there are a lot of other people who can definitely share their opinions, but what I personally feel is that you should do a lot more unit testing, because unit testings are like the more you do, the more better you can make your application. And the how I personally structure my code, like I try to do as much as unit testing which I can do, and then I move to widget testing or integration testing, because like yeah, it can be very very helpful. And then I think once you get used to it, then like it becomes a part of your whole like application development itself, because then you just keep doing it for yourself. Like you will find out the like initially when you started you feel that okay, am I wasting too much time into this, because I know that these things is already working. But that's what is the problem, because that thing is working, but how your computer will be sure that or your compiler will be sure that this thing will work. So I mean, as soon as you'll start it, like even for, I write unit tests for even for all the APIs, because that makes my life easier. I don't really want to go and test Postman or all those tools to just test a few things, like if some of my APIs are working or not. So yeah, I mean, others can have some more opinions.
And doing tests will also teach you a lot more about proper separation of concerns between models, views, and controllers. Because if you don't separate out the model in its own categories where you can then throw things at it and see if they come back properly, and if you don't have the controllers in a way that can be tested, like one of the things I like about RiverPod is the ability to replace any RiverPod call with a different call for mocking, and it's really, really slick. If you haven't seen that yet, I think Provider can do the same thing, but I know RiverPod definitely can do it, and it's definitely taken to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to also add something about widget tests, because they're also super powerful. I agree that you need to first focus on unit tests, but widget tests are so powerful that you can do, like at least I can do UI using TDD, and it's with widget tests it's possible. Before on Android it wasn't possible, so don't be afraid of doing widget tests. There are a bit more, I agree, there are more like integration tests, so therefore like testing your HTTP layer, the unit test definitely, and what else. But don't be afraid of using widget tests. You will be really happy with them.
And I
Yes.
think this integration test package, which like recently came, or if I was not like sure when it came, but when you start using it, it makes your life even better. Like when you used to have like use Flutter driver and you had to do
Yes.
some more stuff, which I guess now you don't have to even do that. So that becomes even better when you have to do integration testing.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, the stable version of integration test package was released, I think, 10th of December last year.
Yeah, recently,
And
yeah.
yeah, and if you use that, it feels like you're writing widget test. It just feels like that.
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
very, very easy.
Yeah,
well,
because I was creating a tutorial about it, and then I realized that okay, this thing is like really cool, because this is
Yes,
just integration test is nothing but just a widget testing, and you just
exactly.
wrap it with a single line of code, and that's it. You're done, and
yeah.
boom,
I,
it's all good.
I would like to add only what Pawan says already, but in one time I was doing some testing, everything goes well. So I did the code, I did unit testing, it's got through QA, we released the app, and then we noticed that if you upload the file more than 15 megabytes, cropper the cropper package fails. So we didn't knew that at that point, even though we created unit testing, it was a good set of unit testing and everything, and we never. This is where widget testing get important, get more relevance, because in unit test everything was okay. We managed everything, but in reality, the widget, the cropper itself, fails after if the image is too big to load. And it fails one time and it doesn't fail the next time. So it gets messy in there. So that's why there is important every step of the way.
And one more thing I would like to add, just a very small thing, like when we will be, dealing a lot more with all different platforms, like when web becomes something even better, or even for Windows and all, then I think widget testing will play a very, very crucial role after that, like even more than what we are doing right now.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got Scott here again. Hello, Scott.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Question.
Actually, yeah, and one other thing too, I kind of feel left out, so I had to grab my dashes. But my dashes are special. You see, they have holes in them.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's nice.
So, question. Let us see here. There is a question that was pulled off of Twitter, which is set state versus value listenable builder. The main difference between these is set state is for what they call ephemeral state. That's what they officially call it in the docs. I don't know why. It just means state that's within a single widget. So the state that has to do with only one widget and nothing else in the app. Now, what's the difference between that and something else? Let's say your widget is a car. Okay, you've used a lot of other components to put together a car, and you change its color. Well, that's only affecting your one widget. Things that are app state are whether or not the user is signed in to Firebase. So when they close the app and they come back, they check the app state. So set state is just within the one widget. Now, value listenable builder is something that tracks an object no matter where it is all over your app. So let's say you have, a book object and what page it's on. So if you turn the page in the book object, if it's shown in 6 different places, all 6 are automatically updated by using the value notifier because it triggers the value listenable builders. And value listenable builders are only building the small area that they have, not the entire widget. So if the value listenable builder is, say, tracking one string, if that string changes, you don't have to pull sets. You don't have to use set state to change the whole widget. You only change the one little string. And that can be a lot more efficient, especially if you have what we like to jokingly call big expensive widget that is in your project. But really, I did a video on this called Value Notifier Simplified, and you can check it out right here on the Flutter community channel. And with that, have I dragged this on long enough? Is Jay ready? Do we have Jay somewhere?
I think I just want to add one small test, because most of the time people say, okay, so I can use value listener builder, and they put their whole widget inside the value widget. So this is against the rules. Don't do it. I just want to add this.
Value listenable builder is great for primitives. Fantastic for primitives. Or
I
other
mostly
small
use it for
things.
drop downs.
Yeah.
Drop downs are a really good idea for value listenable builder, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, and
move on.
I think we have Jay this time. Sorry, what happened last time? I think 2 of us tried to put him on stream, and 1 of us knocked him off.
No, just keep talking amongst yourself. I'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jay wanted to go out and grab some McDonald's anyway.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. We're gonna leave the stage to Jay, and people are waiting for this amazing code that he's writing.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for having me on.
Bye.
Take care,
Thanks for
guys.
having us.
Bye.
See you next week.
Okay, so let's continue where we last left off. So what we did just now, thank you for joining me again, by the way. So what we did last time is add a little bit more data to our rocket guide app, right? So what we have right now is the diameter, the height, and the mass for each of these rocket, right? So we have them for the Starship. It's not really that well legible, that well readable. Again, if you want to see the code or work ahead or try this out yourself, run the app on your mobile device, then go to the link that you see on screen right now. And with that, we have a little bit of data to show here, but we're going to make it a little bit prettier. So what I'm going to do first is actually go to our pub spec and add some dependencies. So we already have HTTP, which is great. What I'm going to add as well is I'm going to use the extension for that, PubSpec Assist. I'm going to add the ant icons package, and this is a collection of icons that we can use in our app that provide a little bit more flair to everything. Another app that or rather package that I'm going to add is the URL launcher. This package will allow us to launch a URL, for example, for a website within our app. So that's perfect. I'm going to save that. And now here's one little thing. I'm already running the app on the bottom right. It's barely legible, but I am running the app, as you can see on the right-hand screen. So the thing is, most of these packages, in fact, I believe that all of these packages, well, except ant icons, are pure Dart packages. So we can just hot restart and we have all the code that we need. However, URL launcher and ant icons are different. Ant icons, add an asset that we need to have installed in our app. And URL launcher is a native plugin. So that means that it has a little bit of native code for iOS and Android and web and all that good stuff. So it allows us to use the native built-in web browser of whatever device we're running on. Now, since those assets and the native code need to be added to our app when we're building it, when we're compiling it, since Java and Kotlin and Objective-C and Swift aren't hot reloaded the same way that Dart is, we need to actually recompile our app. So I'm going to do that in the background here. Now, while we are waiting for that to happen, I'm going to add a little bit of extra theming because that's going to be useful later on in our app. So I'm going to go to our theme here. Now, in our theme, we can set all sorts of different parameters in our theme data. What I'm going to add is two things. I'm going to add a divider theme, and we're going to define that in just a second. And I'm going to add an elevated button theme, because we're going to be using an elevated button in just a moment. I'm going to copy over these fields so we can also use them in our dark mode. And that is perfect. So now that we have them over there, we can, our app is starting again. That's perfect. Now that we have that over there, we can actually define these. So first off, our divider theme. I happen to know that you can set up a divider theme as const, so I'm going to do that. Static const divider theme is divider theme data. So this will allow us to tell how a divider, which is the lines that you see over here in between, they're very faintly visible, but these are the lines that are in between each one of these list tiles. So we can actually theme them a lot, and we can do so using the divider theme so that it's applied to all of our dividers that we use in our app by default. So we can do that, so first off, this space. This means the padding around the line, and that can be either vertical, in which case, if we use a horizontal line, it's the vertical padding. And if we have a vertical line, it's the horizontal padding around that line. I'm going to set that to 0 because that's going to look a lot prettier than having any padding there at all. I'm also going to add an indent of 16 pixels because that'll align nicely on the start here with our list tiles here, so that the divider will only starting from this point here and then continue like that. So you'll see what that does in a little second. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm going to add is the elevated button theme. Elevated button theme. Now, the elevated button theme data has a property on it called style. And this style will be the default style for all elevated buttons that we use in our app. Flutter has a whole bunch of buttons that we can use. For example, text buttons. We have elevated buttons and outlined and all that good stuff. And they all take a theme. Now we can give all our elevated buttons a default theme, or a style rather, using the elevated button style. We can do so using elevated button.style from, and what this will return is a default style, but we can define some more colors. So for example, using this, we can say that all our buttons, which is our primary color, all our buttons background color, as you could see it, is, for example, well, let's set it to our primary color. So that's going to be black. And on primary, that is the color that can be displayed on top of our primary. So in this case, it's usually the text color. So the text color on black, well, that can be white, and that's our accent color. So perfect. So now, by default, all our elevated buttons will have a black background, which is the primary color. And our on primary is the accent color, which is white. So we'll have white text on black buttons, which is going to look really sweet. So now that we have done that, let us navigate to, let's see, let's go to the Rocket Details screen, because we're going to be spending most of our time over there. Now, right now we have this, and it's not that super pretty, but we can work with this. This is completely fine. So let's add a little bit of flair here. Now, first off, let's go to one of these details. Now, because we checked out the starship earlier, we know that the starship is not active yet. So it's inactive, which means that the active property on this rocket is false. So let's display something there. That would be nice. So I'm going to do a little bit of refactoring here. Let's actually just start from, well, let's not start from scratch. I'm going to get rid of the padding here, and I'm just going to take this bit. So now we just have the text without the padding. If we look at how that looks, it's that. Ooh, I'm wondering what happened there. Let's see. Okay, a little error with how I set up the theming. Well, that's okay. After a hot restart, we're completely fine. So right now we have this text here. I'm going to make this a list tile because I want to display a subtitle perhaps. So I'm going to make it a list tile, and this is going to be the title. So if we have a look at that, let's see how that works. Okay, that's good. Our bottom text here, the description, is still not styled properly, but we'll get to that in a minute. So now that we have the title, let's add a subtitle. So I'm going to add a subtitle here. Now, if our rocket is active, question mark, I don't want to display anything right now here. So I'm going to keep it null. Otherwise, if it's not active, I'm going to add a little text here that says inactive. So let's format that, save it, hot reload, and there we go. So now you can see that this part of our app will show whether the rocket is inactive or not. There are other rockets, for example, the Falcon 1, that's also inactive. The other two rockets are currently in use. So that's why the text doesn't show up here, because it's currently active, so we don't add a subtitle. So that's nice, that's perfect. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. So let's go to an inactive rocket, the Starship, because that still has to launch. And I'm gonna add a little bit of padding to this text. Now there's a nice handy dandy shortcut in VS Code here to add padding, but you can type it out yourself if you want to. I'm gonna add 16 pixels of padding around the entire thing. And let's refresh, hot reload, and that looks good. I think it's a little bit too much padding at the top of this text here. So this is a little bit too much padding. If we have a look, if I press P while I'm debugging the app, you can see how Flutter is doing the layout for everything. Now, in this case, we have the padding of this list tile at the top, but we also have the padding around our text for the description here. And that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to change this padding. Instead of doing edgeinsets.all, which means that we'll apply the same padding around all the edges, I'm going to give it edgeinsets.symmetric. And that is really useful because now we can give it a different horizontal and vertical padding. So I'm only going to make this a horizontal padding of 16 because that way we'll lose the padding at the top and bottom and it will look just a little bit nicer. So I'm going to disable this view here and hot reload, and that looks a lot nicer. We'll fix the padding at the bottom here later, but this is already way prettier than what we had before. So now that we have that, let's add a little bit of data. So let's have a look at the ant icons and the list tiles that we can use for them. So let's add a list tile here to display, for example, I don't know, how many boosters it has. So let's add a list tile. And if we save this and hot reload, let's see what we get. That's not too much, but that makes sense because we're not adding any actual data. So let's use the leading property of our list style again, and this time give it an icon. So I'm going to give it an icon, and I'm going to use the and icons that we have just added to our app. And I happen to know that the and icons has a calendar icon. So let's refresh. Let's have a look, and that looks good. That's a good start. So for our title, we can do, oh, sorry, right. We were doing, I think we were doing the boosters. I think that's what I said. Well, you know what? Let's do the first flight then. So let's see. We can add a text here. And let's, for example, just to get started, add the rocket's first flight date. Let's have a look. And there we go. So that's the date on which this rocket will fly, or it has flown for the first time. So that's fine. You can actually see that this date is in the future. So we're going to be using that in a little bit to add a little bit more flair. I'm going to leave this for now and add a little bit more data so we already have something nice to work with. Now, if I add another list style here and give it a little bit of text, blah, blah, blah. We save that, hot reload. This looks okay. We don't have a leading icon yet, so I'm going to add that as well. In this case, I'll add a leading icon that will show, let's say, the width in diameter. So in that case, we can use an icon that and icons also provides called column width. It is not exactly the same as like the width in meters that you would normally show. However, if we refresh this, it is quite nice to show some sort of length. So I'm going to use it. And in this case, the text is going to be, well, let's take the rocket's diameter and add an M behind it because it's in meters. Then let's add a little subtitle that shows what this part of the app is displaying. So in this case, it's in diameter. And if we add that, there we go. That's already starting to look nice and give a nice view of our data. Now, there is no divider between these two list styles, right? I'd love there to be a divider right around here, like a line. Now, we just added our divider theme. So if I just add a single divider here, what you will see if I save this and then hot reload is that we have a very faint divider here. Perhaps you can see it better if I switch to light mode. A little bit. Well, there's a nice line here, but it starts at where our icon starts because we gave it that padding in our theme. So that's good. Let's go back to dark mode. And that already gives a more professional look to our UI. So now that we have the width and diameter, let's also do, for example, the height. We can use column, or rather, what's that? We have column height. Oh, interesting. There is a typo here in the package. Well, I hope to see a pull request from somebody that's watching that will fix that typo here, because it should be column with an N right there, but it doesn't have that. So yeah, do your due diligence. I butchered that English. Well, I am not a native English speaker after all. Let's see. Let's add the height, which is also in meters, and this is in height. And then refresh, and there we go. I'm going to add a little divider here. Excuse me. There we go. So now it's 118 meters in height. Dang. Okay, let's copy this again and add a final list style here. Let's, for example, show the mass. Now, I can't really find a proper icon in the end icons or in the material icons, but what we can use is use the arrow down, and that will already give us a good indication of the mass. So this is the mass in kilogram, and let's say that this is total mass. Well, let's have a look. Perfect. Okay, that's already starting to look nice. I like that. Okay, now for something interesting, I'm going to remove this because we don't need that data anymore because it's now all pretty and such. So let's have a look at this date here. So some of these rockets have already launched at some point, but some of them haven't yet. So I'd like for there to be a way for us to know if that rocket has already launched or it still needs to launch, so it is scheduled to fly. So let's have a look here. What I can do is, since every widget is just a regular class, I can add fields and functions, but I can also add properties, such as getters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a getter first, and that getter is going to tell me whether that rocket has already flown. So if the rocket has already flown, so it has been active, so it's in the past, then it will be true. Otherwise, it will be false. So has already flown. Now I'm adding the underscore here. That's not just style. In Dart, an underscore means that it's private. I don't need any part of my app other than this class to know about this property. So that's why I'm making it private. Now I can use the nice arrow rotation here, as I can with any function. And what is this? So the rocket has a first flight, and we need to check if that is before right now. If that's the case, if the first flight date is in the past, then it has already flown. So I can use the .isBefore and then give it the datetime.now, so right now. So this will tell us, has it flown already, or does it still need to fly? Let's have a look. So if I add this, for example, in a simple piece of text, then we can add that. And in this case, it's false because it hasn't already flown. It still needs to fly. In this case, though, it's true. It has already flown. This date, 2018, is in the past. So that's perfect. So that works. Now I'm going to add another little thing here. And that is to get the days since or until the first flight. So days since first flight. And this is, let's see, the rocket's first flight. And then we want the difference. So what is the time duration between the first flight and right now? And that is this. Now I want it in days in this case. So I'm going to do dot in days. So this is the days since the first flight. Now there's one little interesting issue here, which I want to show you. If I add a piece of text here to show that, then in this case, we get 286. So this will fly in 286 days. Perfect. However, if I go to the Falcon Heavy, which is launched in the past, it gives us a minus. And that makes sense because it has, compared to now, it is minus 1,107 days since it has first flown. But we really want to just show it in days and then show the and then using the UI, we can show like, hey, it is in the past or it's in the future. But the days being negative is a little bit confusing, perhaps. So I can do, in this case, this difference returns a duration. And that can be minus or plus, just like any number. What I can do is call .abs. And what this will do is, if it's a minus number, so if it's negative, it will make it positive. If it's a positive number already, then it won't do anything. So this will make sure that our days are always positive, which is perfect. I love positive days. So then let's add one more thing, and that is something to make it easy for us to show the date, because we can show it like this, but I don't like that there are a lot of zeros here that show the time, because we don't have the time of the first flight, because we only get the date, the year, the month, and the day. So I'm going to add another getter here that will just give us the first flight label, as I'm going to call it. Now I'm going to make this a bigger function because I want to do a little bit of a shorthand here. Let's say that the date is the rocket.firstFlight. And then using some nice string interpolation, I'm going to return the date.year followed by the date.month with dashes between them, followed by the date.day. Okay, perfect. Now everything is in place for us to make this UI a little bit nicer. So right here, we have that first flight. Let's remove that for now. And what text do we want to show here? Well, for the title, if the rocket has already flown, then we want to show how many days it has been. But if the rocket has not flown yet, so it's still scheduled to fly, then we want to show something else. So let's use a ternary operator, just like we've done in the subtitle for the active subtitle. So let's say underscore has already flown question mark. If that's the case, then in this text, we're going to put this piece of text. Let's show the days since, let me get my editor to work here, days since first flight, days since first flight. So now we will display the amount of days with the text days since first flight because it's already flown. If it still needs to fly, if that date is in the future, then we show it a little bit differently. Then we say days since first flight, wow, days until first flight. Now let me spell that right, add a comma here for some nice formatting, and there we go. So now depending on if the date is in the past or future, we show this. We can do the same for the subtitle. So if I add a text here and then say, has it already flown? In that case, we can say it first flew on and then use that label that we made earlier. If it's still scheduled to fly, so it's in the future, then we can say scheduled to fly on and then slow that first flight label. Okay, let's add a nice comma here for some good formatting. There we go. And this is already pretty good. Let's reload, and there we go. I like that already. So it's 286 days until the first flight because it's scheduled to fly on 2021, December 1st. Let's go to another rocket, the Falcon 9. And this is 3,911 days since its first flight because it's in the past. And it first flew on 2010. And that is, June 4th. Perfect. So that's already way nicer than what we had before. Now, let's add another thing. Let's add a little bit of interactivity to this. So what we did before was we added a Wikipedia link right here to our rocket model. Let's use that to show the Wikipedia page. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an elevated button, which we just did theming for. So it's going to look nice. Well, it might look a little bit weird until we actually make it pretty, but this will work. So I'm going to give this an empty function for now because I won't be giving any attention to that for just a second. We'll get to that later. And then the child, let's say this is going to be open Wikipedia article, for example. Let's save and just see what we have. Okay, that's interesting. So it's a very wide button, and that makes sense because the list view is trying to stretch everything in its cross axis as it sees fit. So let's do a little bit of styling in here. So let's first off add some padding. Now, you know me, I like padding of 16, something like that. That's already good, but the button is still a little bit small. So let's wrap the button with a sized box and give it a certain height. So for example, 56, something along those lines. Let's reload, and that's nice. That's a big, nice button right there that we can click. Let's see how it works. See how it looks in light mode, and that's also really pretty. Perfect. So we can press this, but it doesn't do anything yet because we gave it an empty callback function. There's one other thing that I might want to do. No, this padding is fine, so I can hide the layout view. Okay, now let's launch our Wikipedia page. Now the URL launcher package that we added to our app before has a single launch command. So I'm going to add that launch command just by entering it. And as you can see at the top of the file, it has added the URL launcher import. So now it has done that, we can launch our URL, which is just rocket.wikipedia. There we go. Save that, reload, press it, boom, there we go. So that's the Falcon 9. Let's go back and go to our Starship. Let's open the Wikipedia article. And that's the Starship. That's perfect. I like that. So that's nice because now we're using the native built-in web browser to show a web view because we don't want to be doing all that as a web view embedded in our app right here. Not in this case, at least. So it's perfect if we just open a simple link to the website instead, to the Wikipedia page. So that's nice. I'm liking that. So with this, we already have a whole bunch of functionality that we have in our app. But the fun part is we do have a little bit of time left. So what I'd like to ask, let's get inclusive and let's get the community involved. So, can I get my head on the screen for a little bit, please? There we go. I'd like to ask you, do you have any nice sort of feature requests or something that we can do in a little bit of time, or a nice feature request that we can give you guys to work on? Because that way everybody is working on this app together, and then we have a little bit of engagement, which is nice considering the theme of the event in a little bit. So does anybody have any suggestions for us to implement in this app, or maybe some minor questions that I can answer in the meantime? And that way we can have some nice date format. Thank you for highlighting the question, admin. Yes, we could. So date format is interesting. Let's tackle that first. If we go here, we're using the first flight label function, or getter rather, to get us the date. However, what those people are suggesting is a date format class. Now, I believe at least that that's what you're asking about. The date format class is really useful. It comes in a package called Intel, INTL, or internationalization. And the nice thing about that is that the date format will allow us to give it a format that we want to use, and then a date, and then it will do all the nasty work for us, and it will keep track of what language you're using and how it should show that date and everything. Now, I don't have the Intel package in here, but I might as well just add it. So let's go over here, add Intel. There we go. I'm going to use the caret here so that we make sure that we're on the latest build of this version. Now the question is, will it run? Ooh, yeah, because I'm using the very latest version, and it doesn't particularly like that because we don't have non-nullability enabled in this project. So I'm going to go to pub.dev/packages/Intel. I'm also going to sneeze, so be prepared. There we go. And it seems like the latest stable version for us to use is 0.16.1. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to paste that over here, save it. And so now that we have that, we can go to our rocket details. And so this is a pure Dart package, which is nice because now we don't need to restart our entire app. We can just do hard restart and then we're good. So let's import Intel and then choose a date format. So there's a bunch here. Where are those functions? There we go. One we could use in this case is, let's say, year, month, day. I don't use these that often, but we could do something like this. Okay, so now that we have a date format object, we can go over here and say format, and then we give it the date. Ah, that's perfect. It already put the date in. Well, I'm going to make this a little bit nicer. So I'm going to remove that, make this an expression body, and oh, it just barely fits on one line of 80 characters. That's perfect. So let's go into our app, save this, hot reload, and there we go. December 1st, 2021. That's perfect. Thanks for the suggestion. I can't see who made that suggestion just now, but you were on screen, so that's some nice exposure. So that's a good little bit of quality right there. That'll make our life a lot easier. Let's see, what more do we have? There. Oh, I'm gonna try it. Okay, Zlatipel. Well, it's gone. Whatever. I was gonna butcher that. Oh, right, there you are, Zlatipelivanov. I hope I didn't butcher that too much. I'm Dutch myself, so let's see. Let's have a look here. We have pull to refresh. We have align to detail page text. What is that on about? Let's have a look. Bookmark favorite rocket. That is actually not too hard to do. Now, persisting a favorite of your rocket, that is going to be a little bit difficult because that means that we need to work with persistent data, which is that's bad, by the way. It's not difficult, but we can do a sort of a favoriting system. Let's see how fast we can implement that part. So first off, we would need to have a little star or heart on the top right of the app bar here. So let's begin with that. Let's add a, I believe that is an actions. So the app bar has an actions parameter. And what we can do there is add any icons or icon buttons or whatever we want. So let's add an icon button here. Now, the icon itself can be just a regular icon widget. In this case, let's check if icons has some nice heart icon. And then our onPressed callback, I'm going to leave empty for now. So let's save. And there we go. Okay, so that's nice. It doesn't actually do anything yet, but that's okay. We can make that happen in a little bit. So what we can do here is check. This might be a good one for value listenable, something along those lines. So let's check here. Does anybody in the live stream? I'm not sure if Scott or Majid is watching or available to have a little one-on-one to get this working together. But if anybody wants to join, they are more than welcome to be put into the stream and do this with me. I'm all good writing solo though, so that's all good. So let's see. We have the icon button here, and we have an on pressed that as soon as we tap it, we want something to change. Let's make a small version of that liking system here. And that gives you a nice inkling or a nice little bit of inspiration to use this and extract it to more of the app later on. So see this as sort of an inspiration part because it's all improvisation at this point. So what we could do is make this into a stateful widget like that. And so I've converted this into a stateful widget. So now the widget has state, which is perfect because now we can keep track of if this rocket has been liked or not. So what we can do is we can go over here and add a Boolean, which is like liked, for example. Let's make that private as well. We don't need anything else to have a look at that. And now we can do something really simple. Again, it's not like a full favoriting system that we're building right now, but it is something nice to work with, and might give you a little bit of inspiration to do a fully fledged feature of this on your own. That could actually be a really good assignment for you guys. You could use provider and value listenable and all that good stuff. Or if you want to go all the way, use block or riverpod. So let's have a look here. I'll give you a little bit of inspiration, and then you can use this yourself to build a full functioning liking system. And I see that I'm joined by the great Majid.
Yes, I joined to help you to do this. I mean, I'm gonna just follow you for sure. but I really like the idea you mentioned. Maybe you should actually leave. You should go like until some point and leave this as a task for next week, right?
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds perfect.
Let's do that.
So Majid, help me out here. I have a Boolean here that indicates whether I've liked this ship. Now, I have two icons here that I can display. One is the heart and the other is the heart outline. Now, the heart outline, in this case, looks like this.
Yes.
So what can we do here to get this to work properly? Because I want this to change.
Yes, maybe. Is this a stateful widget?
It is now. I just made it into a stateful widget. Yep.
Yeah, so then what if you just click and change the state and then for now, and then show how they can actually properly show different icons when the state is changing?
For sure. Sounds good. So our icon currently, let's begin with displaying the icon then. So our icon currently has the outline, but once we've liked the ship, we want that to be filled so that it's nice and clear that we've actually liked that ship. One thing I can do as well is I can change the color, obviously. So let's do that first. Now I'm going to check here. If we have liked the ship, then I want to... Oh, this is actually not constant anymore because this changes in runtime. If we've liked the ship, then we can show that particular icon. Let me move this to the top a little bit. We can use that heart. If we haven't liked it yet, we'll use the outline. Heart outline. Thank you. So let's have a look at that. And what will this do if I hot reload? Is the question to you, Majid?
Yeah, it's probably a fail because right now it's not a Boolean. It's just null.
There you go.
There you go.
We haven't instantiated it yet. So let's give this a default value. Let's say that we haven't liked it yet. Perfect. Now let's reload, and it's still failing. Majid, why is that?
Yeah, have you like hot restart? Probably
I haven't hot restarted. I've only hot reloaded.
Yes.
Why didn't the hot reload work there? Could you explain to me?
Yes, because you instantiate this class, and once all the variables are already set. So if you want to get a new variable which needs to be instantiated, so you need to restart again, and I mean hot restart, and get that class reinstantiated again with the default values.
That's right. Perfect. Because between hot reloads, the state is preserved. That's why it's called stateful hot reload. So as soon as we have made our boolean underscore liked and it's set to null by default, we do a hot reload, but it's stateful. So we won't lose our state. So it's still null. So that part didn't work. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now that we have that, the only thing we need to do is toggle between that state. And as you said, Majid, a perfect candidate in this case is set state.
Yes.
So let's toggle liked here. And what we can do is we can say if we've liked it, then we want to set it to false. Otherwise, we set it to true. But there is a shorthand here because we're working with booleans. So we can just say liked is whatever like is not right now. So that means that the new value of liked is whatever it is right now, flipped because of that exclamation mark. Makes for some nice little code. Let's reload this and press it, and there we go. Now we can like it. So that's already really nice. Let's add a last little bit of flair, and then I'll leave everybody off with a little bit of a hint on how to do this in a more global way.
Exciting time.
Definitely. So let's say that let's do it the other way around. If we have not liked it, I would not like to assign any color to it. The default is fine. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's white, but that might change depending on our theme.
Yes.
If we have liked it, I would like to assign it a different color. So I'm going to get the colors here. I'm going to give it, let's have a look at the colors here. Because the documentation contains everything. It contains nice pictures that will tell us everything about the colors. A red accent looks nice. So let's use that. Hot reload. So right now it's still white, and then we click it, and now it's a nice little red. And obviously, if we have this data higher up in the app and it's not just local, we can display this in this list view as well. That will be perfect. So let's leave everybody off with a little bit of a hint on how to do this in a more global way.
I like it.
One thing that I recommend you have a look at, and I'm going to separate it in sort of two categories, depending on how advanced you want to go. Something really simple to look at is value listenable, which is just a single value. It's a wrapper around a value, anything you want, like a boolean or a class or whatever, that you can subscribe to, and it will update just as Scott said. And Scott has a great video over on the Flutter community channel right here.
Yes.
The value listenable can be used in such a way that whenever that value changes, all the widgets that depend on that value will automatically rebuild and nothing else. So that's perfect. That way, all of your app, all the widgets in your app will be aware of the state changes, and that's very good. So that's one way to work with it. I'll just add a little thing here. So my value could be something like, I don't know, you could make a custom class for this, but one thing that you can do is make a value listenable, and it should be a value notifier, doesn't it? Because a value listenable is only the abstract class. So a value notifier is what you can actually use, and let's give it a type. Now, one type that you can use is you can make your own class, and then that way do it all nice, like sort of have a list of rockets that each have, there you go. Use a map. A map, for example, of rocket and boolean. And then let's give it an empty one to begin with. So something like this. I'm not saying you should per se put this in your main method. This is just to show how this works.
Yes.
Now we have a value notifier of map of rocket and boolean. And maybe using that, you can say for every rocket, have we liked it, yes or no? And then you can change that state, and then the entirety of your app will be aware of it. Another thing you can have a look at if you want to go to a more advanced route is maybe working with streams. They are a bit complex to wrap your head around and to get started with, but as soon as you get what streams do, they can be extremely powerful and easy to use. The same way that you have a regular value and a future is sort of an async value, you can see streams as you have a regular list of objects, and a stream is a stream of objects, or sort of a more async form of a collection of objects, where each item can be emitted at any point in time, and the stream can give an error, or it can be done. So it's sort of the collection equivalent of a future. That's how you can see it. So if you want to go that route, then my suggestion to start would be either to look up patterns that use streams, such as block, or you don't need to go that big yet, but block is a very popular example that I use every day. But you can also do it manually if you want to. You could do something like Stream Controller, which will set up a stream for you, and for that you do need to import the async package from Dart.
Yes.
And you can give that the same type. The type that you give, the value notifier or the stream controller, that's totally up to you. I'm making it a map of Rocket and Boolean that will indicate what Rocket has been liked. But you can make it anything you want, as long as you can keep track of that state properly.
Very nice.
So I hope those two examples or those two hints have given you a sort of hint as to how you can implement this yourself. It's interesting because this is all like a new suggestion. I'm not actually sure how I'm going to implement this myself yet, because there are so many ways of doing it.
Yes.
But I'm happy to see what the community will come up with.
Yes.
And what creative solutions those people will have. Don't forget that Provider also exists. So there's a lot you can do. And there are a bunch of resources both in this week's list of resources and on pub.dev and all the community websites. So yeah, please let us know what we can, what you're building and how you're doing it.
Yes, fantastic. So maybe, Jay, actually, they can build something and not only use this hashtag, but also they can come to the repository that you are right now pushing these codes, which is, I'm going to just share it.
We should have a short link for it.
Yes, this
there
one.
We go.
And maybe they can open an issue or let you know, like they created something in different ways, and you can check it out. So
yep. So that's perfect. One thing with the Rocket Guide, since it is like a public project like that, is we don't handle issues and pull requests in the same way that regular open source projects would. But please do open a pull request, because I'd love to see what you can add to this project and your solution to it. So share it on Twitter, open a pull request if you want to, use the hashtags, and let me know what you're building. And if this show helped you, then yeah, I hope it did. And I'm excited to see what you're going to build and also how I'm going to approach this in the live stream next week. Is that our last live stream of the month?
No, we have another one next week as well. So let me bring up Scott, and he's going to explain about that. Thank you, Jay, and see ya.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'll see you around.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
Good luck.
Now, that's an interesting point about continuing this. This program actually is Humpday Q&A. We do this every single Wednesday. We have the 30 Days of Flutter thing going on. We're helping Google out with that. We are flattered and thrilled that they've asked us to help promote that. 30 Days of Flutter is going to be ending when Flutter Engage happens, but Humpday Q&A is not. We are going to keep coming here every Wednesday, be able to answer your questions, help you with code. We won't have as many guests, and it will be much more centered around code and helping people and teaching Flutter. But speaking of different community things, real quick, I just wanted to touch on a couple of points before we go. And let me see, do I have the right one? Yes, I do. I believe so. We have the Flutter Community GitHub, which is where you can find the Rocket Guide right there. So there's the URL. Now, this GitHub is full of all kinds of other things besides just the Rocket Guide. Okay, there are, what is that, 51 repositories now that are being maintained, all kinds of packages that are being maintained by volunteers. So that is a great resource. Another resource is the Flutter Community Medium. Thousands and thousands of articles here to help you out. And That has been run by Nash for about 3 years now and has so much content you probably wouldn't be able to read it all in a year. At least, certainly wouldn't be able to remember it. Now, one more, just to give you another interesting thing here, is Flutter's own website here, flutter.dev. This is their community page on the official website. And if you take a look, there is their regular GitHub. That's Flutter's GitHub. The Google Groups is incredible. You can actually find a lot of team members in there answering questions. Other places to go, there's Stack Overflow, of course. There's the Gitter, which is rather interesting. Every single GitHub has a Gitter, but most people don't use it. However, this one is very active. There are meetup groups, Twitter, of course. This other medium is the Flutter Teams medium, which is different. The Flutter community Slack. We have, what, Majid, now 12,000 members, I think it is?
Yes.
The Flutter community Slack?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes.
Over 20,000. Then the other YouTube here is the official Flutter Teams YouTube, our Flutter Dev, Discord. You know, as you can see, forums, hash notes, how to contribute, all kinds of things there on the site. So, Majid, what's happening next week?
What a day today and next week. Next week, we're going to back same time, same date with new guests and other guests and also Googlers, hopefully. And we're going to have similar sessions as we did today, maybe more exciting. Stay tuned, subscribe right now if you haven't. First like button, please. And send us all what you've done with the hashtag over there, 30 Days of Flutter. We are watching. And hopefully you will be featured in the next week's slides. You know, every week we are watching and picking some good ones. Yes, definitely. So with that said, I think we need to close it up. Scott, if you don't have anything else to share.
Not in particular, no. Just also we will be continuing on with the Rocket app. We'll keep adding more and more to it as your suggestions come along. This is a living, breathing thing.
All right, then, everyone, thank you again for joining us, and have a good day, evening, night, wherever you are. See you next week.
Take care.